Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or perhaps good evening if you're in an internet time zone. What does that even mean? If you're somewhere else on the planet, that's what I'm trying to say. This episode, and by the way, we just had another thing where we had to go forward in time. Did you get that right?
Yeah.
It's tough.
Jumped forward. Freaked
tough to
me out.
remember.
Especially when you're at a bar hammered.
Yeah.
My dad was an hour late picking me up at the airport yesterday.
Of course, because he forgot. This episode is brought to you by Stamps.com. Here's a way to save time. Other than that, going to the post office to send your packages is always a pain in the ass. Getting them measured on a scale, and if you're running a small business and you're selling shit online, if you're not, you should do that because it's way better than having a boss. But Stamps.com is a way that you can do it all from the comfort of your own home. With your own home computer and a regular printer, you can print U.S. postage right there in your office. They give you a free digital scale if you use the code word JRE in their $110 bonus offer, which includes $55 of free postage and a free digital scale that you are not to use for mushrooms. And you can measure your packages and print official U.S. postage right there from your office and send it through Stamps.com. It saves you a ton of money. And you know, all you have to do is package everything up, print it up, put the labels on, give them to the postman. Thank you. You cut a whole process out. If the postage changes, Stamps.com is on the ball ahead of time, so you don't have to worry about it. And you really shouldn't be fucking complaining about postage. I'm so tired of being, stamps went up to 49 cents. Oh, my God. That is the bargain of the universe. 49 cents, and you can take a piece of paper across the country.
Yeah.
That's fucking ridiculous that you would even complain about that.
Yeah.
And some dude in shorts will bring it to your door.
Yes. And they have a car that has a steering wheel on the wrong side of the road.
Exactly. And doors that
That's
don't
his
close.
commitment. His commitment to delivering you mail.
Yep.
Anyway, go to Stamps.com. Before you do anything, click on the microphone on the home page and type in JRE. That's Stamps.com JRE. We're also brought to you by Ting. What Ting is a mobile company that does things. Well, they like to try to cut out all the bullshit that you normally get when you have cell phone service. All the bullshit like early termination fees and these add-ons that you weren't aware of when you signed up for a contract. They don't have contracts. You can cancel anytime you want. They sell you only what you use. So instead of having now, you have 100 monthly minutes. How often do you fucking use 100 minutes? I mean, shouldn't you just pay for what you use? Well, that's how Ting has it set up. If you use more, you pay more. If you use less, you pay less. But the bottom line is that 98% of people would save money if they use Ting. Ting is also a company that uses the Sprint backbone, so it's a real cell phone provider. It's not some Mickey Mouse shit that somebody slapped together with duct tape. It's fucking Sprint. And you can get a cell phone from them, one of the highest-end Android phones available. Like they have the HTC One, which is a beautiful phone. They have the Samsung phones, the Galaxy S4, the Galaxy Note 3. They have all the high-end, beautiful Android phones. And you just feel better about the transaction. It doesn't feel icky. It feels like you're giving them money for a good service, but you're not getting fucked with any weird shit that they tack on.
Sounds like a burner phone, Joe. It sounds like what senators used to.
To pick up mail hookers?
Yeah.
And drug dealers in Baltimore.
No, it's an awesome company. Go to rogan.ting.com and save $25 off your first device.
You know, they're also working with iPhones now.
Yes.
Just recently they started allowing iPhones.
Yeah, which is great, but the iPhone thing is I've got a weird thing going on with them because of this Bitcoin thing. I think Bitcoin is a fascinating subject, and there's going to be people that blow a lot of money on it. It's going to go up and down. I mean, there's a lot going on with it. People may be trying to sabotage it, but the bottom line is you can't get an Apple Bitcoin wallet app. Like, they canceled their app. The app had 120,000 downloads. I don't know, but that's disrespectful to the community, to the Bitcoin community, in my opinion. I don't know if Bitcoin's ever going to work out or not work out, but I do know that I don't want to support a company that does something like that. Like, if these applications are doing something deceptive, then I think there should be some sort of a press release explaining what deceptive practices were being done by these apps that made you remove them. But I find it odd if I can get all these different Bitcoin wallets for Android, but when I look on an iPhone, there's fucking nothing. That can't be a coincidence. You can't tell me that Google is so negligent that they allow these people to get on their network and sell these apps. And no one is no one's stopping all the exploits, no one's stopping all the bullshit, or is Apple just keeping them from coming on their platform?
Who knows?
It's interesting.
Yeah.
But I think this is a critical time for something like a Bitcoin, because it might not even about Bitcoin. It might be about what Bitcoin becomes. And, people saying it's not perfect, they want to kill it. Wow, whoa, slow the fuck down. Why would you kill this? Like, what is this? Let's look at what this could be. Because what it is right now is like some sort of a computer program and a new form of currency. But if you kill it, it never grows into what it could have become. Money used to be fucking knots on a rope, okay? It used to be like these weird handmade coins made of precious metals.
Right.
And now it's paper. Like, how did it now it's numbers, it's ones, it's zeros, it's numbers in a computer somewhere. You can't tell me that money can't evolve like everything else, like a fucking processing system, like a computer, like a television. Things get more complex, they get better, they tighten down, they figure out. You've got all these smart people working on this Bitcoin thing. There's a lot of really intelligent people invested in this idea of making the economy more stable with this sort of a currency that can't be fucked with.
Or traced.
That's fascinating.
Or like, isn't it like more it's more anonymous? That's
yes. It's more anonymous.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, man? I think that the idea of only going the way we're going and only using the methods that we're using right now, it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous.
Well, and also the upper level of currency trading has been virtual for a long time.
Yeah.
When banks borrow overnight rates and all that kind of stuff, there's no movement of paper going on. It's just a computer click here or there.
Yeah, we got way off track. This is supposed to be a Ting commercial. But I get fucking crazy when it comes to these things. And
I'll tell you. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I met a guy at a wedding years ago who's a world famous seashell expert. I sat with him at the same table, and so we were chatting. Boring wedding. And
sounds like a boring fucking conversation.
Cool
but check it
fuck.
out. Like this guy, because
How dare you?
it came up because
I'm bored by seashells.
Cassie mentioned Mozambique, and he's like, "Oh, I've been to Mozambique 4 times collecting shells. It's like this amazing place." So I mean, the guy goes all over the world. Anyway, he told me, how we're talking about currency. When the Dutch supposedly bought Manhattan Island from the Indians for wampum, right? They paid them in wampum, right?
Yeah.
And what wampum was, as most school kids know, is seashells like sewn onto a belt, right?
Yeah.
But what he told me was that they're a particular type of seashell that only grew in this one bay that was controlled by this one tribe. So they sort of had a monopoly. It's like the dollar at this point, the reserve currency, right? And it would emanate out from there. So what the Dutch did was they went and figured out what shell it was, and they figured out how to cultivate that mollusk themselves. So within a couple of years, they had an unlimited supply
Counterfeit.
of the counterfeit money.
wampum.
Exactly.
People have always been
wampum,
creeps.
man.
That's the story.
Yeah.
Well, and all currency, you can fuck with all currency.
Yeah.
By definition, whatever,
It always has been that way.
Yeah, but now it's all virtual. It doesn't. There's not even a coin to fake anymore.
Well, isn't that the whole? I guess we already done these commercials, right? Did we say Rogan.ting.com? We did, right? So let's just not even play music. Just keep going. It feels weird when you break up conversations like this. But wasn't the idea about gold and precious minerals being there's very few of them? There's a finite amount,
Right.
so that this is a good thing to base money on because it's people have sort of always kind of recognized there's got to be like a way to put a cap on it.
Yes.
The way to keep this thing, it doesn't totally make sense for controlling everything about. I mean, you think about what money really is. It's so bizarre. It's because it's not human, okay? It's not thinking, but it seems to be an organism. It seems to be something that requires you to love it. So it allows you to connect yourself to all these material items that fill up this weird hole in your idea of the world.
I'll tell you what it
fills up
is.
holes of perception.
It's a Western god, right? Because it's power hungry. It accumulates power. It's jealous. It doesn't want any other currencies in existence. It wants to control the market, and it only works if everybody believes in it.
That's a dark way to put it. I've heard it put a positive way, which is it just represents the life flow. It represents this flow of energy that's always coming through the universe, and it's kind of like one manifestation of that energy flow. And if you look at it like that, instead of demonizing it, which I've definitely done in the past, and just see it as just this thing that sort of it's like we know when you throw paint on the Invisible Man or something, it reveals this kind of flow through the universe. That's where you get into the secret stuff, like if you're very generous, more comes back,
Yeah, but don't you think that money does have characteristics? I mean, don't you think there are predictable things that happen to a person's life when a bunch of money comes into it?
Yeah, no doubt.
Definitely.
I think money is objectively toxic.
You think so? Well,
Yeah.
I think it's not. It's literally toxic when you consider all the disgusting people who handle that shit. All the fear sweat that soaks into it
And
as people.
cocaine, huh?
See,
Lots of
but
cocaine.
I don't think that money is inherently toxic. I think people with power are inherently toxic.
Yeah.
I don't think it has anything to do with money. I think the real corrupting factor of money is that they want someone everybody wants it, okay? So if everybody wants it, it's someone at some point in time is going to try to control the flow of other people acquiring it, because then it'll interfere with them. And so then it becomes this chimpanzee competition thing. It's not that money is toxic, because you could take wealthy people who make a lot of money, who do a lot of good things with it, and they seem to be really nice, and they have this ability to help and affect all sorts of other folks, like Bill Gates. I don't know anything about Bill Gates, but what I know about watching Bill Gates is his constant charity work. He's
Okay,
constantly
but let's
giving
take
away
this
money.
back to where you started, right? With the Apple shutting down the Bitcoin.
Right.
The way Bill Gates got rich, the way Microsoft got where they are, is by shutting down competition. Every time somebody rose that would challenge Windows, they would shut it down, buy them out, drive them out of business.
Mm-hmm.
They're like the Walmart of software. That's why everybody bitches about how shitty Windows is, but you can't not use Windows if you're in a big company in the 90s.
Well, that's also because they got a stronghold on the market when Apple was shit. I mean, Apple
right.
was really
and they didn't
bad.
let anybody else come up.
Well, Apple
right?
wouldn't let anybody sell their operating system and just
Right.
attach it to a computer. When you buy an Apple computer, you buy it from them. They used to have clones. They used to have these Apple clones that you could buy. And then they shut those clones down. And people got really pissed. And businesses also, like the old Apples were dog shit. They were bad. And when Windows came out, there was so many good things about Windows operating system as opposed to the old OS X. Like there's something about the way the operating system worked that it was really bad with multitasking. So
well, I thought it was the other way. I thought that Apple operating systems sort of led the way and Windows copied them.
No. There's definitely some copying back and forth from each other, but the original way of using a user interface, a graphic user interface, it was invented by Xerox. They invented the first computer that worked like that. Everything else was a terminal that you'd have to just punch in code. They figured out how to do that first, and then Apple and then Windows copied that. But so what? It's just a graphic user interface. I mean, like what's going on behind the scenes? Well, the old days before OS X, Apple had no memory protection, no preemptive multitasking. Like the old operating systems, the old operating systems for Apple were like really shitty. So then they changed it to go with the Windows platform, to go with the Intel platform when they couldn't get anything more out of that IBM computer that they used to sell. They couldn't get any more juice out of it. And then the Windows computers were getting up to like 1 gigahertz. So they just jumped ship and went to Intel and had to change everything.
Oh, you're talking about the chip.
Yeah, they had to
okay,
change
right,
their
right.
processors. They had to change their processors. And by the way, if I butchered any of this, real true computer geeks, I
I know.
apologize.
I'm imagining
think-
thousands
I'm
of
so
them.
impressed. The multitasking thing.
Yeah,
What-
preemptive multitasking.
Wow.
The ability to do well, I think a lot of times when like today Windows is awesome with that, so is Mac. You can run a bunch of different programs at the same time. But it used to be like if you wanted to, iTunes wasn't around back then, but if you wanted to open up iTunes and also have a browser running and also, be checking your Twitter feed on a Twitter application, you'd have a real fucking problem. Especially if you're trying to play a video online as well,
Right.
then your computer's just going to shit itself. But
Yeah.
now that's super commonplace. But one of the reasons is there's just more, the operating system is far more complex, and it's a Unix-based operating system now. So when Apple came around with OS X, it was so far ahead of anything else. Like Windows looked like a dinosaur in comparison. And that's when I switched over. The guys in the Fear Factor office had these Apple computers with OS X. Like for whatever reason, Hollywood has always been like super, super Apple. like everything, like Apple evangelists on sets.
Graphics.
But then,
Not just that.
But remember when Apple shit all over Final Cut? Remember that? They did that update to Final Cut and just nerfed it and turned it into this like baby machine or something.
Well, Ray-Ban stopped using it.
Well, so did my brother. My brother's a video editor in DC, and he switched to PC. And the new Windows system is pretty amazing, man. I've used it. It's really cool. I like it a lot. But
The new Windows system for video editing, is that what you mean?
well, no, just the new Windows, the operating system itself is so much different. If you're used to like whenever you stopped using it, if you revisit it now, it's pretty cool, man.
Oh, I'm sure it's cool.
I still use Mac though, but I think one cool thing about Windows is that it gives you the freedom
To fuck up
to
your whole computer.
fuck up your computer. And that's cool, man. There's always some with Apple, you always feel like your hands are tied a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
They're always trying to control shit. They took Flash away. Remember when they did that?
Mm-hmm.
Right after I learned to code an action script a little bit, those motherfuckers started launching photon missiles into Flash. And ever since then, I've had a sour taste over Apple. 'Cause
Well, I think there was a reason. There was a bunch of security exploits with Flash, though, wasn't there?
who cares? Let me destroy my goddamn computer if I want to, and my life. It's that attitude of like the older I get, the more grating it becomes when you realize you're being protected from destroying yourself. It's like stop it.
Right.
Let me do this if this is what I'm compelled to do.
Well, especially when it's been proven that the things they're trying to prevent you from doing aren't harmful oftentimes, like
Yes.
pot. Like,
Yes.
think about the money that's been spent on keeping pot illegal. Of course, everyone distrusts you now. They're never going to listen to a goddamn word you said. You try to keep pot from them. Like,
Yes.
why? What's one of the dumbest things the government has ever done is try to keep pot from people.
No
because
shit.
You smoke it, you find out it's awesome, you don't die, and then you start distrusting everything.
Right.
Well, masturbation. Think about how many people thought they were going to die from masturbation, right? You lose your mind, you get hair on your palms.
But when did that end? That wasn't my time.
No, well,
You're a little
unless
older
you're
than us.
Catholic. No, I'm talking about earlier times, early 20th century, 19th
okay.
century. You know,
I never heard that you were going to go blind or anything.
Oh yeah, there were medical books in the 19th century.
yeah.
You know,
sure.
Kellogg had this whole thing about it. You know, the
It causes insanity.
insanity. It causes hair to grow on your palms. It just
Yeah, isn't that weird about
debilitating
Kellogg?
dizziness.
Kellogg from Kellogg cereal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He had a thing.
He was very. You
He
ever see that? The Road to Wellville.
He hated people who masturbate.
He had a thing about that.
Well, I mean, the whole thing with cornflakes.
Weirdo.
The reason cornflakes were invented was to stop boys from masturbating.
yeah, how was the idea behind that? Well,
Okay,
you explained this to us before, didn't
Yeah,
you?
the idea is that spicy foods excite the sensibilities, and so if you eat something that tastes interesting, you're going to want to come. So they invented, and also graham crackers.
Really?
Graham was another of these big anti-masturbation evangelizers. So they invent these really intentionally bland foods.
That's hilarious.
to
They
give
like,
to
you know why
teenage
they like
boys.
that? You know why they like to keep the teenage boys from jerking off, so that when they finger their assholes, they immediately come.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like veal. Keep them in the dark.
Oh, that's so
Well,
true.
Kellogg, the
just
guy-
make him so fucking horny. Just anything. Spin your finger, father. Just anything. Just touch me. Squirt.
Fucking Mount
Confusion.
Vesuvius of jizz.
Of
Shit.
teenage
What
jizz.
am I gay now? Shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Well,
like, what
all
if
right.
your cow could milk itself? That would be bad.
And it can climb fences.
Yeah,
we're keeping cows.
a cow that does yoga and can reach its own teats.
A cow that's so smart it realizes how fucking huge it is. It can just run through that fence
Yeah.
anytime it wants it. What shitty wooden fences they used to keep cows in with? That's unbelievable.
I know. You know how they train elephants? You know, you see these elephants that are like chained to something, and the
Yeah.
elephant could just pull it out.
Right.
The way they train them is that when they're babies, they chain them to something really heavy that they can't pull, and then the elephant for the rest of its life is like, oh man, when that chain's on, I can't pull.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a friend who keeps cows. He's got like these grass-fed cows, and he's got this big farm, and he butchers a cow every year. And guess what? Those fucking cows know it.
When
they
the
know
butchering's
something's
coming.
going on.
Yeah.
They don't know that they can. He doesn't have like an old schooly wooden fence. He's got like a real fence that could keep the cows in. But he doesn't. What are you doing there, man?
I'm taking a picture
He's drawing dicks on his
of
pad.
Duncan Doodles.
We have
man.
pads now. We're trying to be very sophisticated. The pads are great if you need to write something down in the middle of a show. I always wanted to have something like that.
I've got preemptive multitasking written down here. I'm going to remember that.
might be a totally made up thing.
So your
that's how I avoid writing.
Your friend's cows are paranoid, huh?
Oh, dude, we went into his yard where the cows are, and the cows fucking run from you. And they run from you, and like this idea that people like to have of, eating grass-fed meat as being totally cool. Like, listen, grain-fed cows, bullshit. But organic grass-fed meat, hey, those cows lived a great life. Guess what? No, they don't. They live in fear. Those fucking things are penned in, and you don't think they know that every now and then one of them disappears?
Did you ever read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? It's a futuristic. There's a restaurant called The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, and people, you could go to that restaurant and watch the universe end. Like somehow it was in a time portal, but cows would come to your table. And they could talk, and they would suggest which parts of them you should eat. Like they were like,
oh my God, that's so creepy.
Yeah.
If the world keeps going the way it's going, that will eventually happen. We'll eventually bestow upon cows the ability to want to die, have no problem serving humans, give them a very simple mind, and then have them trot around on 2 legs and walk around on their hind feet and explain what parts of their body they want you to eat.
That's it. Yeah, they don't even have to die right away, right? They can just have amputations. So it keeps it really fresh.
Yeah, that could be.
You ever see that?
I feel like we're talking about the fucking military too.
There's a cartoon I think it was in the New Yorker. It had a little frog coming out of the kitchen in a restaurant, right? Coming through the door, and he's on a skateboard, and he's got the 2 things like this, and it says special frog legs. Man, that's harsh.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
That would be worse, though. You'd have to actually take off the pelvis. I mean, you're not just cutting off the leg at the socket for a frog leg.
That's an amazing thing when you've convinced something to want to die.
Yes.
Like once you've done that, you have really you are in control. If you've got a being that you have convinced to die for you, fuck.
Well, that would be the sort
so
of
powerful.
The sale.
Just call him a hero.
Yeah, call him a hero cow.
Hero
that would
cow.
be the sale. The sale would be that these cows have no problem dying. They actually want to die, and they have no fear. So what we're worried about is pain and fear. Oh, we remove their pain sensors. They don't feel any pain. They just wander around, and when you take them into the back room to slaughter them, it doesn't even freak out their friends.
They have an orgasm the whole way through.
Yeah. It's like an ecstasy trip.
What about laboratory meat? Have you seen this? That they're growing meat in a laboratory?
It's
so that's got
expensive.
no brain at all.
Right.
Right. So the fear and the pain are removed.
Probably
There's
tastes
no
like
nervous
shit,
system.
and it's not as fun.
Not as fun. It's a blast.
For whom?
That's fun for the person that gets to kill the animal.
Well, they're going to, right now, I don't know what kind of meat they're growing, but eventually they're going to grow human meat.
Oh, for sure.
And the question's going to be, if you grow human meat in a lab, is it okay to eat then?
Yeah, for sure that's coming, right? I feel like.
Or is that cannibalism? Right.
Well,
Very interesting.
Because it didn't come off a human. It just was grown.
Yeah,
So
it'll certainly be thought of as cannibalism by a lot of people.
You know what's really interesting about
Long
cannibalism?
pig,
Do you know what causes cannibalism? It's very interesting.
Hunger.
Yeah, hunger, exactly. But there are all these. I always just thought like some civilizations were cannibalistic and some weren't. Right? It was just like some evilness that got into some and not others randomly. Right. But it turns out that there's a biological reason for this. There's a guy named Marvin Harris, a great anthropologist. Was at Columbia for a long time. He wrote about how he studied different islands in the South Pacific, some of which were cannibalistic and some of which weren't, in different societies around the world. And what he found was that the societies that were cannibalistic had no domesticatable animal that didn't eat the same food as humans. In other words, you aren't going to raise dogs for meat because dogs eat the same shit that humans eat, right? You want to raise animals for meat like goats that don't eat stuff that humans eat. So they're not competing for the same original food source, right? Then it's supplementary food, right?
Yeah.
So like if you look at the Aztecs, there was nothing in Mexico that they could domesticate and raise for meat that didn't eat what humans ate. So they were protein starved. So when they were in a battle and they killed a bunch of dudes, they would eat them. Whoa. Right? Whereas the Europeans, who killed just as many people, if not more, weren't eating them. Then consider that a sacrilege because in Europe you had pigs, you had goats, you had chickens, you had all these things that were easy to domesticate that humans had been living on for a long time. So it's really a historical accident who's cannibalistic and who isn't.
Could you imagine if you were a European settler trying to make it across the country during the days of the Native Americans? Like when, 1700s, 1600s, whenever they did that. And you'd after the first wave that had already gone over and basically committed genocide on many populations, and so you were the enemy, and you were trying to make it across the country without running into one of these people that might eat you.
Yeah.
You mean like
wow.
a wagon train kind of people?
Yeah,
the Comanches.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Nez Perce, apparently, according to Steve Rinella, my friend Steve Rinella is a real historian on Native American history and, just the history of the colonization of this country. But he told me these great stories about the Nez Perce Indians who were known for cannibalism. They would butcher people.
Really?
Yeah. They would eat them like the same way they would eat cattle. So if they would catch people, some enemy or something like that, they would kill them and eat them. And they made a regular habit of it. And not only that, they would play games. Like they told this one dude, they said they took all his clothes off and they let him run. And they said, if you can get away, you could survive. And they killed his friend in front of him, butchered him, started eating him. And they told him that if he can get away, they're going to give him, a 20-minute head start or whatever count they had.
Yeah.
Right.
If he can get away, it's right. And the guy survived. The guy made it to the river, went into a beaver den, naked, swam up into a beaver den to hide. Yeah, naked.
Was the beaver in there?
Really?
It might have been. I mean,
Think how bad that
fuck,
would
man?
suck if you get eaten by a beaver
beaver
running
just
from
killed,
cannibals.
A beaver just killed a person recently.
I believe it. They're
Yeah.
scary, dangerous creatures, man. They
Beavers?
chomp through trees.
A hunter got killed by a beaver. He got bitten by a beaver in the leg and he bled out. Like, you don't realize this thing can take a fucking tree down with its face.
Yes.
Beavers, you don't want to get bitten by a fucking beaver.
No, you don't.
So this asshole climbs into this beaver den naked, okay, to get away from these Nez Perce Indians. And then he winds up walking some, 100 miles or some fucking crazy
Naked.
shit. Almost starving to death, just eating what he could find and kill along the way, naked. Naked.
Badass.
Just to get the fuck away from these Nez Perce Indians who ate his friend in front of him.
So that's not Nez Perce. That sounds more like the Iroquois. That
It
soun's
is.
like Eastern.
Look at this fucking
Was
beaver.
that-
It's just
a
running
beaver
at this
attack.
guy.
Yeah, look
Holy
at that
shit.
muddy little devil.
Look at it. It's ready to defend
It's
its turf.
stalking.
That's weird.
Jesus Christ.
shit.
Run.
Is that a beaver?
I think so, yeah. That's what it says.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
looks
it's got
like
the
a
flat
beaver.
tail.
That's a beaver
Yeah.
that's gonna fuck you up. I mean, beavers can eat trees, man. You don't want to fuck with a beaver. And this guy was so scared of these Indians, he climbed into the beaver's house in the water in the night. Because if you find one of these beaver dens, like Ronella showed me how to find them, when you're going down the river, you see like these stacks of sticks.
Yeah.
This weird sort of formation. He's like, that's a beaver den. And you could tell by looking at it whether or not it's used or whether it's abandoned. But this guy didn't know that shit because it was at nighttime. So he's running down this road and just jumps into the river
Yeah.
and finds a beaver den and just says, fuck it, let's take a chance. Swims up into it in the middle of the night. Fucking A, man.
They're so cool, beavers, when you consider that how radically they change environments, that they make lakes happen. That's amazing.
Yeah.
They actually make lakes. There's a great documentary on beavers that I saw. Why do they call vaginas beavers? That's one of those things I've always kind of like.
Fur. It's the old
it
days.
doesn't-
Used to be fur.
But so many other things have fur.
Did you see that thing that they had on Vimeo recently? It's been going around the internet, how wolves change the course of rivers.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's amazing. You haven't seen it?
No.
Oh my God, Duncan, you got to see this. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's a piece. Play a little expert.
It's Yellowstone.
excerpt of it. It's Yellowstone, and the introduction of wolves. They've dwindled the population of deer and deer and elk down, and because they've made the populations lower, the soil around rivers has gotten less erosion because more plants are growing on it, and then more rodents are surviving, more rabbits are surviving, and then more bears, and bears kill the fawns. It changes literally because of the fact that there's more beavers. It's changing the course of the river itself.
Yeah, they're amazing. I mean, like.
Wolves. It's amazing. Their predation.
Has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom.
Oh, that's cool.
And the classic example is what happened
This is
in
so
the
badass,
Yellowstone
and more
National
badass
Park in the United
'cause this
States
guy has an English
when
accent.
Wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years, that the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years.
Quintupled.
Their valley size quickly became
fucking
forests
bison.
of
What an
aspen
animal.
and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds, of migratory birds, started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters.
This isn't even a human
muskrats and
talking, it's a
ducks
unicorn.
And fish and reptiles and amphibians.
You know he went to a
Fascinating.
fancy school.
Coyotes.
And he was
And
paddled.
as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. But here's where it gets really interesting.
My erection began to grow with the wolf.
We should probably not play all of this video because it's theirs, it's not ours. But that's a fascinating thing, and you only hear one side of that. You know, you hear that the wolves are dangerous,
right?
People are scared the wolf population is growing, and that's the part I usually hear. But it's fascinating to hear that all this was going on as well.
You know what I was thinking when we were listening to that is how much pleasure that guy was taking in his own accent.
Yeah,
and it's
Yes.
something I often notice with British people and French. Not so much Spanish, and I don't notice it with Americans speaking English. Like, I never, get into how my voice sounds while I'm speaking, the way that guy obviously was. You know?
Right. But he's a presenter. You know, he's trying to be dramatic, don't you think?
He was trying to, he was like the Lord of the Forest or something.
That guy should do every nature documentary ever.
I love
That's what
it.
I think.
But
his voice made me more excited.
He kept calling it the Yellowstone.
Yeah.
The berries,
The Yellowstone.
the beavers.
Well, if you know.
But the British have, their accent is much more tied into identity, and I think
Yes.
different parts of identity than American accents.
Yeah.
American accent is regional, whereas the British accents are regional but also class-based. So that guy, in speaking the way he's speaking, is telling you he went to Eton and then he went to Cambridge, and his parents had lots of money and his family's had lots of money for a long time. A British person listens to 3 words and knows where that guy's from, where he went to school, his whole
Really?
scene. Yeah.
So sort of like we can recognize accents from the South.
Yeah,
or
right.
New York accents.
Right. All we have
Boston.
is regional, and we don't even have that much because we all grew up watching a lot of the same TV shows.
There's
right?
still regional.
I mean, there is, yeah, but
Friends if you have any friends in New York or Boston or Baltimore.
Right.
Baltimore's a weird one. They got a weird sort of half Southern thing going on down there.
But I don't think there's any equivalent in England to my accent, right? You hear me talk, you don't know where I'm from. Right. You don't know if my parents had money, didn't have money, where I grew up, nothing, right? There's nothing like that in England. You talk, people know.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like those. There's linguists who can listen to your accent. Not everybody, but apparently there's people who are trained to listen to any accent, and they can tell you within 50 miles where you lived. A lot of the time, they're really good at it. They can identify. They're trained to do that. They're like forensics people. If you hear someone's voice, it says everything about them.
There's
That's pretty badass.
some words that are indicators too. I lived in Western Pennsylvania when I was a kid for a while, and there's some words I'll say, if someone's trained that way, that they can pick it up
I hate black people.
like that.
Oh!
Like that.
You can identify where someone's from when they say
This
that.
guy
pretty
over
good.
here. Can
Cool.
you though? You
Cool.
can.
No, you can't. But there are stereotypes for that, because there are there's people, there's bigots everywhere, but there is a stereotype. There's a lot of stereotypes attached to like a rebel flag on your truck says a lot. Like when you see that, it says a lot because you are sort of like, when you're saying like the South will rise again, you are pointing to a time when slavery was okay. And
hey, that's how you see it, my friend. What I see is a bunch of people that are very proud about their Southern heritage. They like that part of the country.
I was raised in the South. I love that part of the country. I really do. I would like the South to rise again, minus the slavery.
So you're
the
Neil
South
Young,
is wonderful.
and you're Leonard Skinner.
Why does that have to be included?
What, the slavery?
Why does it have to be included in the South?
Well, because that flag, that's why everyone has a problem with that flag, because that flag indicates a war that was partially fought over keeping slaves, over the right to keep slaves. Like you wanted to keep your slaves. Right. And these sons of bitches up north were telling you that you couldn't do that anymore, and that's a big problem for your economy. And because, you weren't just making money from the slaves working, but the slave trade itself, you were making tons of money too.
So therefore, that flag just inherently spells racism.
It doesn't have to.
No, but it does, though. To me, I mean, a lot of times it just does. I mean, I'm a pretty open guy, but if I see that flag, I think racism.
Well, yeah, it's like anytime people, it's a problem.
It's unavoidable, right?
It's unavoidable because that's what happens. It's like anytime you see the swastika, you don't think Ganesh.
Exactly. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, you think Nazis.
Yeah, if you try to have a swastika tattooed on your body today, you're a real piece of shit. But at one point in time, swastika was, in the Eastern, in what was in many different,
many different.
There was some Native American
Hindu,
people
Native
used
Americans.
it.
That it was an old symbol. In fact, that old symbol, there's a place in somewhere in the valley, like Canoga Park or something like that. There's this really old place that was built by people from India, and there's swastikas on it. Wow. And they have a big sign there explaining. Yeah, look at this. Ganesh with a swastika. They had a big sign there explaining what the original meaning of that symbol means. Because today, that's the symbol of hate.
Yep. Yeah,
which is crazy.
And people are I heard there's some movement called like that's trying to bring back this or take the swastika out of the Nazi idea. Like there's like they want to bring the symbol back somehow. There's people who are trying to show that you can't.
Hitler fucked up that mustache, and he fucked up
the swastika.
Those two things you'll never see again.
He really did.
He was such a cunt. You can't wear the same mustache as him.
Do you
think about how many people with regular mustaches were just total pieces of shit, and it's okay to wear that mustache. You don't get associated with that person's behavior.
And who was some comedian had a bit about like whether there were lots of Germans named Hitler? Because now you never meet anyone whose last name is Hitler.
Bill Burr.
No, there were Hitler's descendants. Decided not to have kids. Like there was a decision.
Oh, really?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
What?
Interesting.
Fuck that. I don't believe that.
To end the family line.
Do you guys think Hitler actually died, or do you believe the idea that he went to South America?
Did you hear that? That's the most recent one. The FBI saying that Hitler went to Argentina.
The FBI is saying that.
FBI?
No, it's like one of those internet things where people. I'm not saying that the FBI. I'm saying it's one of those internet things where someone has supposedly found a Freedom of Information article from 1947 that shows that Hitler escaped in a fucking submarine. Like, okay.
Do you? I think he might have. Why not?
It's all redacted. Like half of it's redacted. Like, look, this is it. The fuck out of here with this. This is a piece of paper that someone put online. That's what that is. Unless I hear better. Hitler is not in fucking Argentina, you asshole.
Well, not anymore. Anymore. You think
he found his body? Didn't
he was kind of cute at that age. Sorry, he just had the picture of Hitler. He looked a bit like
he was sultry.
Joe, would you have spanked him?
No.
I mean,
good God,
I'd have been afraid of him. Yeah, that guy fucked up a lot of things.
But I don't know, man. I kind of believe he escaped. I do kind of believe.
Why would you believe that?
Well, just because it's Hitler.
So what?
Because if you're Hitler,
the walls are falling down.
Yeah,
how's he going to get out of there, man? How's he getting out?
An escape tunnel.
There was no body.
No, the body. Apparently, the body that they found the dental records or the body itself was not the body of a man. It was like a woman's body. There's like,
What?
yeah, look it up. Like the skeleton, because they.
No, you look it up, bitch. You're the one with the crazy story.
If I look it up, then it'll be disproven. They say
I don't want to look it up.
They say that they incinerated his body, or they supposedly his body was set on fire, and then the bones don't match the bones of a male, and then he went to South America and lived a really good life.
You really believe that? Well, a lot of Nazis definitely did go to South America.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
And a lot of Nazis got hired by Nassau.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Operation Paperclip.
Bring him to California.
Werner von Braun, in fact. The
Yeah.
Simon Wiesenthal Center said that if Werner von Braun was alive today, he'd be prosecuted for crimes against humanity.
Jesus.
Stop and think about that. The guy who was the head of NASA was a hardcore Nazi. They hung the 5 slowest workers, like whether it was every day or once a week, whatever it was. They would hang them in front of their rocket factory in Berlin. They would just take the 5 slowest workers and hang them. And one of the guys, there was a documentary that this guy did on the moon landings, and he started interviewing people that were in the concentration camps that knew, like, had seen Werner von Braun walk in, had seen all these different, like, high-level Nazi scientists walk in. There's the rocket factories. Werner von Braun's rocket factories used Jewish slaves and murdered them. So, I mean, he was a monster, and he was the head of NASA.
Jesus.
Yeah, he was a real monster. I mean, and people try to sugarcoat that because of the fact the guy did amazing things with rocketry. But, it's, well, it wasn't his idea. Well, you got to understand that, please. They hung the 5 slowest fucking people in front of his rocket factory in Berlin, and then the United States took him aboard.
That tendency to sugarcoat murder
weird.
is so fucked up, and it happens all the time. And it's really an odd thing when you see
It's a black and white thing.
Yeah.
People want someone to be good or evil.
Yeah.
They don't want someone to be evil and also amazing, because that's too fucked up. If you're good or you're bad, that's why they sugarcoat, and that's why they defend. I mean, I've heard someone. There was a recent thing where someone was talking about this guy who had done a bunch of fucked up shit and lied about a bunch of things, and his friends were saying, "Yeah, but what about this? He did this." They were saying all these positive things that he did. I'm like, that doesn't matter. He still did those other things.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make those other things non-existent. If you're doing something fucked up, you're cheating people, you're lying, whatever you're doing,
Yes.
you're fucking people over, you're doing something evil to people. If you're also doing something good, it doesn't mean you didn't do the evil thing.
Right.
They don't go away. Like,
and vice versa.
vice versa as well.
Right? I
Yes.
mean, there's some saying we judge our heroes by their finest moment and our criminals by their worst.
Yes.
So you're a great guy. You fuck up. You do one thing, you whatever. And that's how we judge you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I've met some
it's
people that have
strange.
committed some, fucked up crimes, and they turned out to be really good people. Like Joey Diaz is a perfect example. If you look at Joey Diaz on paper, he went to jail for armed kidnapping of a drug dealer with a machine gun. I mean, he did some crazy fucking shit. But if you know Joey Diaz as a human being, he's one of the sweetest guys you'll ever meet in your life. He's so friendly. He's so funny. I mean, every time the phone rings and it's Joey, I get excited to talk to him. But
Yeah.
if you just looked at him as on that instance of his life, in a cocaine-fueled rage, kidnap some guy, you would think he's a terrible person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a strange thing, isn't it? When like somebody gets convicted of something that they did, and then they've done like 20 years in prison, and they're probably different.
Yeah.
They've probably changed, but they have to stay in there for their entire lives.
Well, a lot of young men.
Did you? I don't know if we talked about this, but a couple weeks ago, I interviewed a guy named Bruce Lisker for my podcast, who was in prison in California, San Quentin for a lot of it, for 26 and a half years for killing his mother when he was 17, which he did not do. And man, he is amazing. He's an amazing dude. He is so not bitter.
That's
It's
incredible.
unbelievable. And I asked him, it was at the beginning of the podcast, I was like, dude, I thought when I met you that I would be sitting next to a ticking time bomb of a guy like explosive with rage, and
Right.
you're so chilled out. I feel like I'm sitting here with Mandela. And he said, they tried to destroy my life for 26 and a half years. I'm not going to finish the job for them.
Wow, cool.
He's a great guy. He's right near here. If
That's
either of you
intense.
want to meet him, he's a wonderful dude.
Man, I love that attitude, because that attitude is saying fuck you to your past. And it's like, because when you meet people who are rationalizing being an asshole from their past, they have this story they keep telling about their shitty family, their abusive parents, their awful whatever it is. And you have empathy for them, but simultaneously you realize how they're recreating that story every time they bring it up, every time they talk about this awful thing that happened to them.
Right.
It's like in Buddhism, it's compared to like making a necklace, like beating a necklace, and every moment you're sort of recreating yourself again and again and again. And when people have experiences like that and they're like, no, I'm not going to let that be the anchor that pulls me down into a negative life.
Right.
I can reinvent myself in this very moment right now,
Yeah.
regardless of whatever happened to me, regardless of my past. That's all gone. It's really cool.
And he said, like, really, who knows where I would be right now if this hadn't happened, right? Maybe I'd be dead. Maybe I would have had a car accident. Maybe, something else would have happened to me. That there's no way to predict it. So the fact that I'm here now, it is unavoidably a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm intact, and his experience of prison was very moving, and not really what I was expecting. Like he said, the sexual abuse and that sort of thing was not an issue for him, and fighting like 4 or 5 times he had to like stand up to someone, and he said he got, I think if I remember correctly, he said like he got his ass kicked, but he had to establish that there was a limit. You couldn't push him past. That was the main thing. But he's a cool guy, and yeah, the way I met him was that what happened was his father died. His father never believed that he killed his mother. And in fact, the way he got into it was so fucked up. He's 17. He goes in. The detective who was running the investigation just had a bug up his ass and decided he did it and would not be swayed from that conclusion, right? And but there was there was no evidence. The evidence was manufactured, fucked around. Anyway, so what they told him was plead out. And they said, like, you're 17, you say you did it, you'll do juvie for a year or two, then you'll do like 1 or 2 years, in a medium security, and you're out, right? So he took the advice. His father encouraged him to take the advice from the lawyer. He pleaded guilty, went in, and then he started getting interviewed by psychiatrists, prison psychiatrists, right? And they kept reporting that he wasn't showing remorse. Well, of course he's not showing remorse. He didn't do it.
Right.
Right? So this charade that he was that he could just sign the paper and go in for a few years and be out was bullshit, because he had to go through 100% and actually act as if he had done it, and he was so remorseful and crying and oh my God.
Oh, no.
So, and he couldn't do that because the guy's got some fucking integrity, right? So that's why he was in for 26 and a half years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so his father died, and he left some money, $15,000 or something, and he used that money to hire a private detective to go back and sort of look at the evidence again. This guy blew through the money, but the detective, by the time the money was gone, was like convinced that this was all bullshit. So he was like, fuck it, I'm doing it pro bono. And he kept going at it, and then he got a couple of guys from the LA Times to write about the case. And my aunt saw the article and sent $100 to the fund to help him, and they became friends. And that's how I got to know him.
Wow.
Cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So what happens when a prosecutor does something evil like that? Is that guy criminally responsible now?
No, the detective, well, not the prosecutor.
Whoever it was.
Because the prosecutor is relying on the evidence presented by the police,
So
right?
the detective
So
was
the
the
detective
one
was the
who's
one
setting him up.
who set him up, who lied about the evidence, who then, here's the kicker, as Bruce said, the guy who got me thrown into jail got me out. And the way he got me out was by pushing too hard, because what he did was this same detective throughout his career, every time Bruce's case came up for parole, he would, or probation, I don't know which it is, this guy would come to the hearing and you talk about how terrible he was, how evil he was, and blah, blah, blah. He came to a hearing like 25 years into it, and he said, not only is this guy definitely guilty, but I have found more evidence now, 25 years later, because there was money missing from the mother. Mm-hmm. And so one of the ideas was the motive was to rob his mother of a couple $100. And this detective said, I went back and I got into the house, new owners and all that, and they claimed that they had found the money in the crawl space in this kid's former bedroom. Right? So, now the case is even stronger than it was 25 years ago. Denied. That this detective goes back, interviews all the people who had owned the house, and they all said, we never called the police. We never found any money. I have no idea what that guy's talking about. The detective just made that shit up.
Wow.
And that was his misstep. And that's what eventually got Bruce out. Then the
shit.
PI went in and he's like, interviews everyone like, oh, this is, 100% sure this guy manufactured that evidence.
Well, he must have done that more than once.
Exactly. And this was one of his first cases in a 25-year career.
Oh my God. So
So
the guy's entire career was just setting people up and treating them like a
nobody
commodity.
knows. And you know why nobody knows? Because the LAPD is not investigating. They're not opening up his cases. They're not going back and looking at this.
What?
Yeah, it's a fucked up thing, man. So this guy, I mean, listen to the podcast. If anyone who's interested, it's on my podcast, Tangentially Speaking. It's like 2 or 3 episodes back. Bruce Lisker. He tells the whole story.
What the fuck?
It's fucked up. This cop is retired with full benefits.
Oh my God. How is that possible? That's a criminal.
They did an internal investigation.
Oh my God.
For about they have a year to turn in the results, right? This guy from Internal Affairs, who's an honorable cop, did the investigation, found that this case was definitely a setup, right? Only looking at this one case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a setup, complete bullshit, manufactured evidence, etc. A couple weeks before the year was over and the report would be officially filed, his superiors took him off the case and squashed it.
Oh my
No report was
God.
ever filed.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
Right. And the cop who led that investigation, I said to him, Bruce, like, have you been in touch with this guy? Like, how's his career going? He said he's shunned by the police. So he's still working, but he's like, nobody's, pals with him.
What the fuck?
Yeah. It's that culture.
Well, it's that culture of, shunning rats, culture of going after the people that investigate. But if those people didn't investigate, look what happened in Miami you ever see the movie Cocaine Cowboys? Documentary about Miami. Miami was so crazy at one point in time that the entire police graduating squad of, the police academy graduating class, the entire group was either arrested for corruption or murdered.
Wow.
Is this when Don Johnson was on the force?
No. This is. I guess probably like it was about that era.
Fuck.
It was the 1980s, and the stories that they tell are fucking unbelievable. Cocaine Cowboys and Cocaine Cowboys 2 are some of the best fucking documentaries ever. Miami has more banks per capita than anywhere else in the country.
That's hilarious.
It's all cocaine money.
Right.
That's what built that country, or that part of the. Well, it really should be a country. Miami's wild.
Yeah.
It's really like a country, like a
And
different country.
all those Cubans, all those pissed off Cubans.
Yeah, pissed off at Castro, and he's right over there, 90 miles away, across the ocean.
It's one of these things, man. Like, like when you watch Cops and you realize what you're actually watching is just people getting arrested for something that shouldn't be illegal.
Yeah.
It's really hard to enjoy it anymore. Like, like a victorious cop who's found some drugs on a person and then acts like he's doing some heroic thing. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're just chaining up a skinny guy who wanted to feel good, man. You're not being a hero right now.
Yeah.
This is just a guy who wanted to know what it felt like to be God for a few hours, and you're fucking slapping cuffs on him. These people who are getting arrested, when you see them mostly, they're the least dangerous looking people on earth. And then when you add to that the fact that these motherfuckers are putting fake evidence in there sometimes.
Oh, did you hear about this case where they're undercover cops in a high school pretending to be friends for a whole semester, then they bust some guys because they got them weed?
Yeah. Well, that happened with a woman, a
Oh, that
25-year-old
that
woman
was
in
horrible.
Florida. She was a beautiful woman, and she seduced a 17-year-old boy.
Honor
into thinking-
student.
Yeah, honor student.
Yeah.
To get her some weed. And now the kid has a felony on his record.
Yeah.
So there's you can never run for office. There's a lot of things you can never do.
It's so predatory and
Yeah.
terrible. I mean, it's like if there was there's not enough illegal stuff out there, so they have to make stuff up because there are not enough bad people. That's the problem.
No. It's certainly not that. There's plenty of bad people. They just don't want to have to find them. You go to find bad people, you have to deal with dangerous situations. If you could just coerce some 17-year-old boy to sell you weed and then lock him in a cage, and you still get that little check on your win column, you're happy to do it because it perverts what the action is.
Yeah.
What the noble law enforcement officer, the noble soldier, those are really important aspects of any society that wants to stay safe.
Yeah.
Because we don't have perfect humans yet.
Yeah.
We don't have a perfect race. We don't have a perfect culture. So what you're dealing with is just an organism that is following the rules, and they subvert and pervert these rules in order to be successful.
Yeah.
The same way people cheat on their SATs, the same way people take steroids and get caught in the Olympics, the same way, all these different things that people do that they're not supposed to do, but they do because they just want to win more than they want anything else.
This is a very American thing, too. I live in Spain for 22 years, right? Spanish cops and American cops, completely different. Now, they're different for cultural reasons having to do with the military, I think, first of all. I think a lot of American cops are ex-military. They come back. There are no jobs. Best job opportunities are in law enforcement. They're already accustomed to the sort of discipline and the uniform and the weapons and all that kind of stuff. So they've got – a lot of them are suffering from PTSD, and they've got a very us versus them attitude from the military. They've served in Afghanistan, Iraq, whatever. They come back, and they've got that same attitude in L.A. or in Petaluma or wherever the fuck they're working. So that's a problem. The other issue is the legal system. The American legal system is based, as you were just pointing out, on rules, right? If you break the rule, that's illegal.
Right.
European legal system is a different the trigger is not that you broke the rule. The trigger is that somebody complained, that you bothered somebody. So there are no Spanish cops flying over the city with infrared cameras on helicopters looking for grow rooms. They're just not doing it. Because unless someone complains, they don't give a shit.
Right.
It's the same thing with parking. It's like if you're blocking traffic, they'll give you a ticket. If you're just parking in an area where the thing says from 3 to 6 and not from 4 to 2 or whatever it is, they don't give a fuck. I mean, and I've experienced it directly with them where I'm parking my motorcycle and there's this big long line of motorcycles on the Ramblas in the pedestrian area of the Ramblas in Barcelona. And I go to this cop and I know you're not allowed to park there, but there are like 15 motorcycles. And the cop's standing there and I say to him, "Can I park here or what?" And he's like, "No, but normally, we won't do anything." It's like, that's a cop.
That's definitely a better way of doing it.
So
than
much
what
better.
we're doing over here.
Yeah.
It's just if you're a judge and you've put someone in jail for their entire lives for a drug, how do you sleep at night?
Well, how about worse?
Minimum mandatory sentencing. The judges can't even decide. Right?
But
Under the Reagan administration, they passed these laws saying, well, if you've got, 1 to 4 ounces of marijuana, that's 5 years. Doesn't matter who you are.
Well, you shouldn't be a judge. Don't be a judge.
And a lot
But
of
it doesn't
judges
matter.
resigned.
They can't. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah,
a lot of judges resigned because of that. Because they said, "What am I doing? All I'm doing, it's a table. I'm not making any decisions."
Well, how
there."
about that guy in Pennsylvania that was purposely locking kids up to get paid?
Holy shit!
He was getting paid. He was getting payoffs, and so he was putting kids in juvenile detention centers when they were young. They were like teenagers, taking them away from their mothers and getting them raped, getting them beat up, putting them in with all these abused kids.
Some of them were committing suicide.
It's so crazy. That guy ruined lives and did it for money, and he just got locked in a cage. Every one of those kids that he sentenced should get, as an adult, a day to beat the fuck out of him. There should be a tag, like you pull a tag like you're hunting deer, and they all throw their money, because there's thousands of kids that should get to beat the fuck out of this guy.
Yeah.
And what you hope is you get a really early hunting season.
At least piss on him or something.
No, beat the fuck out of him.
Don't let him have
Almost
fun.
beat him to death. Sentenced to 28 years for selling kids to the prison system. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. 28 fucking years.
Asshole.
Look at that piece of shit. I would love to plant some knuckles on that guy's face. If I was a kid, especially, that this guy put away, I would love to beat the shit out of that guy. That's it. He should be beaten to death by every kid that he did that to. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, when you start realizing that the criminals have done the exact same thing that pedophiles do. Like pedophiles, they will get jobs working at schools because they want to be around kids all the time. They're predatory and they do that. In the same way, criminals, the really smart criminals, they recognize that the best place to be if you're a criminal is in the legal system working there. That's the best place to be. If you're a judge and a criminal, you're fucking set, man. You're a judge. If you're a criminal and you're a senator, if you're a criminal and you're in the government, that's where the top creme de la creme of the criminals go to the fucking legal system and into the government because that's where they have the most power and are the least likely to get busted. You know, the dumb criminals are the ones who stay on the other side of the law. The smart criminals are the ones who infiltrate, get in there, and then start exploiting people in the exact same way. And then they don't get arrested. They arrest. That's where it's fucked up because let's face it, in the laws of the land, it is not criminal to put a skinny guy in handcuffs, take away his house, throw him in jail, ruin his life. That in this land, it's not legal. It's not criminal. But in the law, in a greater truth, it's a criminal act. In the same way that in Nazi Germany, it wasn't criminal to incinerate Jews. You could do that. That was not, but from history's perspective, it was an atrocity. So in the same way, it's an atrocity in a very small scale. Yeah. If you're destroying people's lives over nothing. I know we've talked about this a million times, and I don't know if there's even much you could do except shake your fist at some monolithic power that seems to have infiltrated everything and hope for the best. But God damn it, man. Aren't you a little terrified that one day you'll end up with fucking ankle manacles on wearing that bright safety orange thing as you get sucked through that satanic maze of lawyers and eventually just land in a tiny little cell? That can happen.
It certainly can, especially if you do something that threatens some other powerful organization. You know, if you want to sell some sort of a drug that's not sanctioned, that might interfere with the selling of another drug. When they fucked up is when they made it legal to have private prisons. They fucked up when they turned opening a prison to a business. That's just a mess. When they did that, man, not just private contractors to build a prison, but private prisons themselves that don't have to give you access. They don't have to let you look around. Like Louis Theroux was on the podcast from England, the BBC shows.
Yeah, I saw that.
He was talking about private prisons not being able. You can't even get in there.
They wouldn't let him in.
You can't film in there. Like public prisons, you're way better off. Apparently,
definitely,
private prisons. You're essentially being used as a battery. A human battery to generate money.
And what do you call it when corporate power and governmental power fuse?
Satan.
Fascism.
Yeah.
Fascism
brings us right back around to where we started.
Yeah.
Corporate government interfusion is fascism. That's what it fucking is, and that's where we're going.
That's
Because you're right. Because once it's privatized, then you get that shit in Pennsylvania. Yeah. Because part of the contracts, I don't know if you've seen these, the contracts guarantee an occupancy rate of 98 to 99 whatever percent. It's in the contract that the state signs when they if we don't have enough people in the prison, we pay penalties, we do that, blah blah. So it makes business sense to make sure that you have that occupancy rate. I mean, once you do that, then it's not about people anymore. It's about corporate power. Right?
Oh, it's so dark.
Yeah, it's fucking dark.
That is always the big philosophical question. Like, what if everyone in the world decided to no longer break the law? What would they do? What would they do if everyone drove the speed limit just for a day? If everyone in Los Angeles drove the speed limit for a month, like nobody ever made a single traffic violation, what would they do? If they have a quota, what is that quota based on? Is it based on a zero-sum evolutionary point? Like, there's no way we're going to ever evolve past this, so we'll never stop speeding. We'll never stop crashing into each other. We'll never stop. It's like banking on complete failure, banking on no growth. Because if there's growth, what are you going to adjust? You're going to say, well, I guess we can't rely on speeding tickets anymore because people don't speed? The fuck? That's like a $50 million a month bill that the city gets. They're not going to fucking change that.
Right.
Fuck you.
Google cars. What's going to happen when all the cars are self-driving? Who's going to get tickets?
Suck. There's going to be no sexiness anymore.
Well, you could fuck in the back. What do you mean no sexy?
Roll by.
You fuck in the back seat when you're going up the 5, man.
Half the thing is wrong there. You shouldn't be in the back seat. You should be driving like a man. First of all, you should hear an engine that's fucking up the environment. That's half the fun. That's the yin and the yang. The ones that fuck up the environment the most are the sexiest. They smell like gas when you hit the fucking gas. You smell it. Overflow when you let off. Blah, 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 blah.
It's
Those
so
are the fun
funny.
ones.
Man, it is cool, though, how we are like moving in the direction of being able to just perpetually put ourselves on autopilot. Because you know how they have those new cyber suits that you can put on and like lift really heavy things? But they're going to make like miniature cyber suits where you can like have them walk your body around so you don't even have to walk. Like you can put yourself on autopilot. You can like press a button on your suit and it gets you out of bed and like walks you
Sure.
into the kitchen
It's
bathroom,
the atrophy of the body.
brushes your teeth for you.
Yeah, we have a real problem with overpopulation too. We do in this area, meaning overpopulation in certain areas. There's a few spots in the country where it's just like you can't have this many people shoved in together. It's just not wise. It's not sustainable. You're keeping it up right now on red line.
Yeah.
If it stops raining, we're fucked. If the gas flow stops and you can't run trucks that carry vegetables,
Yeah.
we're fucked.
Yeah.
The trucks also bring in meat. The water has to be pumped from Colorado.
There's an earthquake.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
how about
you got it all in one place.
there's so many things that could go wrong, and one of the big ones is that we're all congested into this one area. It's like a giant game of musical chairs. Like everybody knows that the music is going to stop, and you're going to
Yeah.
be fucked most likely and not
Right.
have a seat. But everybody's like, "Fuck it, let's just keep going."
Man, I was talking to this guy the other night, and like I was, saying, I don't know if I'm going to have kids, and I'm starting to feel happier and happier about that. And he looks at me and he's like, that is a very selfish perspective to have.
He just likes saying that to
It's
you.
the
He has not
opposite
even-
of selfish.
He's not
That's
even
what I
thinking
thought.
about
I'm like,
that.
what the fuck are you saying,
I
man?
guarantee you that guy's not even thinking that. What he's doing is being a parrot. That's
Yeah,
selfish.
yeah,
You're a selfish
exactly.
person. I get to squawk at you. Oh, Duncan, you're not even around your own children. I'm moral high ground above you. I love children. In fact, more than I love anything in this world. So fuck you, Duncan.
He was attaching it to like how by not having kids, you're somehow not contributing to society somehow. And he was like really like he really thought he knew what he was talking about. And I quoted that Jack Kerouac quote where he said, "To have a child is to damn a being to death." Have you ever? What?
That's rough.
Every time you have a baby, you're giving something the death penalty.
It's a gross thing that people do where they claim moral high ground because they're breeding. I hated it when I was not a father, and now that I'm a father, I still hate it. It's stupid.
Right.
You don't have to have children. You just have to be cool. Just if you want people to like you, you don't have to have a fucking baby. All right, just be a nice person, and people will like you. Be a nice person, you'll have a positive impact in this life. It doesn't like make you or break you whether or not you reproduce. It just doesn't.
Right.
It can enhance your life, like many experiences. It certainly has enhanced mine, but you don't have to do it. I've met some amazing people that have never had kids and don't want kids, and they're still great to be around. I love them.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. But there's so many people that when they get locked into something, whatever it is, it's the way to go. And
Right.
if you're not going that way, you're fucking selfish.
Yeah.
Oh, Duncan, you don't even want to take care of a baby.
I don't.
Bet you have a little dog, don't you?
And I don't want to take care of that. I can't take care of fucking baby. I'm just kidding. I love my little fox.
I like cats. I always say, man, when they invent a baby that knows to shit in this little sandbox from birth, I'll get a baby. And if they're furry and cute.
Right.
Other than that, I mean, the only reasons I'm ever slightly regretful about the fact that I'll never have kids are selfish reasons. I'm not thinking for the kid. I'm thinking like, wow, I'll never have that experience of
Right.
this. I'll never have that experience of that. I'll never, my little girl lying on my,
Right.
back while we read, or like, I'll never have those experiences. But that's all about me.
Right.
As far as it's neutral. You bring a kid in, you don't bring a kid in, whatever. That's a wash, right?
Yeah.
And obviously for the planet, it's a hugely destructive thing to have a child, especially an American child.
See, I don't buy that. This is where I don't buy that, because everyone that I know that's awesome is a person. The idea that a hugely destructive thing is bringing a person into this life, if you create a good person, what you're going to do is you're going to bring into this world someone who's going to interact with countless people in their life and most likely have a good personality and shed a good example of what a human being can be. That's the potential of having a person.
Yeah, but they're still going to use a lot of resources.
But so what? What are we going to do? What happens to the world? How about we all kill ourselves? We don't have to worry about the world. How about we kill ourselves for the world? This poor world is choking on our bullshit and sewage. Let's kill ourselves.
You sound like Charles
You're the
Manson.
guy who was
That's what I
just
say.
bitching
We're
about
here.
overpopulation.
We're here.
Jack.
Yeah. Oh, no. Don't get me wrong. I'm not playing both sides of the fence. We're here. This is what I'm saying. I'm saying we're here. We should just enjoy the fact that we're here.
But our unborn children aren't here.
Don't worry about bringing kids into the world. We're going to bring kids to the world. We're going to keep breeding. What we should do is try to figure out how to be sustainable. Obviously,
We're not
going to
keep breeding.
You say you won't, but one day
Dude, I'm
errant load
52
might
Errant
sneak
load.
past the
An
net.
errant load.
You can get the guy who was the president, whose children are still alive today, had kids when he was like 60 something.
Man, I've got one ball. I'm almost 40. I've taken acid almost my entire life. My sperm look like Tibetan refuse.
Your one
acid
ball
does not
survived
affect
cancer.
the sperm.
What?
Your one ball survived cancer. The other ball gave up, tapped out. This
Exactly.
ball's a super ball.
Survivor.
This
It's
ball's
the
like,
survivor.
fuck you, I'm cancer-free, bitch. You could have easily gotten cancer in both balls.
By the way, I'm not saying I'll never. I mean, I don't know if I'll have kids. I'm not saying don't have kids or. I just find it interesting how people really do think you should have a kid. You know, I think you're right, man. The idea is, if you feel like having a child, have a child. What's that saying? Only have a kid if you can't live without a kid. You know, like if you just have to have a child and then raise her. You know, somebody had Gandhi. Somebody spit out
or
Tesla.
not. But it's true. Or not. It's
Von
either one
Braun.
is fine. Life is about us interacting with each other, not just interacting with babies, not just interacting with people that are genetically related to you, interacting with all of us. And if you can contribute in any way, there's a lot of people that are great parents that contribute to this world by being a great parent, by raising someone who's going to influence other people. And a lot of them don't necessarily get too much credit for that.
Right.
But I think it's like you get credit for making a great painting and being a fucking complete schizophrenic outside of that.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, he's a brilliant genius, but you don't get credit for raising a human being and developing the personality of a human being or assisting in the development of a person's perceptions and views of the world. That's an incredible resource.
Yeah.
And the idea that every one of them is just fucking up the world, whatever. The world's fucked, period. We're 2014. All right, the direction that we're going in is fucked.
Wait,
all right?
what do you
It's
think?
all fucked. There's too many of us. There's too much pollution. It's not changing. There's the global warming is happening, whether you like it or not. Whether you blame it on Democratic vagina sponsors, whatever you do, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Live, just live, be alive. The justifications of having a baby or not having a baby, all of them are bullshit. They're all bullshit. Just be nice. Just do it. Live your life and be nice.
You don't buy it, huh?
Joe Rogan is Nelson Mandela.
Wait, you don't buy it.
Most people don't know what we're talking about.
I know.
We played it before the show.
Yeah, I saw a thing the other night. I was watching. Sorry to interrupt you, Duncan.
I wasn't interrupting.
No, he
I
was
was
asking you a
you.
question.
You
You're
asking
not
me if
buying
I
it.
buy what?
You don't buy that you are one. You're a person. I'm guessing whose opinion is you should, as an environmentalist, not have kids.
Well, I mean, look, my whole worldview is layered, right? It's like there's an optimist inside a pessimist surrounded by an optimist. It's like atmospheric layers. So essentially, I agree with Joe that who gives a shit, it's fucked. That's the optimism, right? But within that, I don't know if that sounds like optimism, but that's what it is, because it's like, well, if it's fucked, then I don't need to worry, right? So I can be optimistic and happy. Right. But within that, there is the sense that, okay, look, we are a scourge on the planet. We're sucking up the resources, spewing out toxins, destroying everything. And some of us do that at a higher rate than others, Americans at a higher rate than anyone, right? We create more carbon, more plastic, more everything, use more energy. So having an American baby from an environmental point of view is not a good thing for the trajectory of the planet. Now, within Joe's context, it's all fucked anyway. The trajectory's going over a cliff, so have a good time.
The only thing that's going to help that trajectory.
I agree on both levels.
The only thing that's going to help that is human innovations. At this point in time, the momentum of creating things is so out of control that the only thing that's going to be able to put a halt to it is a human being that's really smart that figures out how to do it sustainably. A human being that figures out what one or a series or a group or a movement that figures out how to engineer society the same way we've engineered many other aspects of our society or our world that make us able to walk down the street and not worry about getting eaten by a lion.
So engineers should have babies.
Also, I think I don't know how helpful it is to think of. I mean, I know what you mean. We're fucked and all that language, but
we're not.
I don't think we are, and I think we're getting in that trap of thinking of our species as a plague on the planet.
Yeah.
If you think of the species as a plague, then you're basically saying, well, I too am a plague.
Right.
Then I am the cancer. I'm a living parasite. And if you think you're a living parasite, then that means you're going to start acting like a parasite, because why wouldn't you? You're a parasite. So I think it's the language is weird, because you're saying nature is malfunctioning right now. You're saying this planet is a malfunctioning planet. Nature's gone wrong. Look at terrible nature. It made all these little humans and they're ruining the earth. But it's like, how dare you say nature's fucking up? It's nature. You're you're a piece of it. You know, you're a tiny little. It's like a little droplet of water in a river, being like, "This is an evil river. It's tearing up the shore.
Well,
Look
but
what
wait
it's
a minute.
done."
Okay, so by that logic, how dare you get chemotherapy for cancer? It's part of the whole. It's your organism having, its mutations that just happen. I think the mutations of cancer are similar to the mutation that's happened to our species, where it's a thing that grows out of control and threatens to destroy the host.
Well, first of all, let me just say, when I said "how dare you," I don't really mean "how
No,
dare."
I know,
You know
I know.
that.
I'm
Okay.
just following the logic.
And number two, as far as like getting chemotherapy, which I didn't get, but if you do have cancer and you get chemotherapy, what you're doing is healing yourself. So that's why you do it. You get chemotherapy.
But you're interfering with the flow of nature.
Well, I think the flow of nature is healing. Like, that's nature's regenerative, and heals are a part of it. You get to decide what part you want to be.
So then I believe that by reducing human population to the very, very small level where it's not impacting the planet, that's
nature.
The natural healing process of the planet.
Well, no, it's nature. It's your nature to think that. Just
Right.
like it's the nature of someone who is afraid to die to figure out a way to survive. The nature of a person who's worried
Right.
about their finite existence, creating immortality, is also natural. All of it's natural. The human curiosity itself is natural.
Yeah.
Human innovation, human imagination, all those things are natural. So, like, we just live in a much more complex world that we've created because we've created all these other variables within our nature that we don't like to think of as natural. But really, plastic is fucking natural, okay?
Yeah.
It comes out of people. They pull it out of the ground.
Exactly.
It's not like we make it in a fucking portal. We zap it out of the multiverse and
Yeah.
print it up with a 3D printer. No,
Yeah.
we're fucking taking
We
things
make
out
it.
of the earth and we make it. Everything's natural. Every fucking component of the universe that we can measure is in fact
Black
natural.
holes are
Yeah.
natural.
The word natural is a shit word because everything's fucking
It
natural.
is.
It's a redundant word
Yeah.
every time you use it. The whole world is natural, even plastic.
I think unnatural is a shit word.
Man-made is what you should call it.
Man-made, yeah.
Man created. And that's also, by the way, nature, just like a fucking beehive's nature.
I just don't
It's
want
all
to.
nature.
I don't want to shuffle around feeling like I'm a goddamn crab lice chewing through the planet Earth. You know,
Well, you are, but
I
you're
don't-
not to me. You're not to each other. We're not to each other. But, you
Right.
know, I mean, how many people do you know that claim to be conscious and then they throw a cigarette out the window and you watch them do it? You're like,
now I notice that because I've seen you. If you want Joe to attack you, throw a cigarette down in front of him because every time it's like a
in the woods, man.
Yeah.
That guy that did it in the woods.
Yeah,
the supposed Sasquatch hunter.
No, that is true. When you see somebody who's like, when you watch them throw the cigarette down, and it is an odd moment where you're like, well, what is that? I never noticed it before because I never really just thought about it.
Well, that guy, we were in Utah for the sci-fi show, and this guy, we flew in, we had a great time together. We flew in, we drove through Utah in the summer, it was so beautiful, unbelievably green and lush. Like, Utah is fucking beautiful,
So it's
man.
in northern Utah.
Yes.
Wow, whatever. It was about 2 hours drive, and we get all the way there, and the guy within 5 minutes, he's smoking cigarettes. He smells like gin, and was his gin he smell like? You think?
It was I don't
Some
know the kind of
alcohol.
booze.
And he's telling us about how he met Bigfoot the first time he went looking. He found a bulletproof wolf that appeared out of the mist, and I'm like, oh shit. So then the guy, he doesn't have a cigarette on him anymore. We're in the fucking woods, man. You know, and I'm like, where's your cigarette, man? And he threw it on the ground. He just stepped on the ground. You know, I was like, come on, man. The fuck are you
Was
doing?
it a filter or
Yeah.
unfiltered?
Filter? Was it-
Filters don't biodegrade.
Well, even unfiltered. Come on, man. I don't want to walk through
Unfiltered
this.
in like 2 days it'll be gone.
But it's paper. You know, I don't want to see it. It's garbage.
Yeah.
If it stays for a week, it's annoying for a week. It's annoying for zero amount of time if you take it and you put it in your pocket.
Yeah.
It's a creep move. It's a creepy, selfish move. The when people throw them out the window of their car when they're driving on the highway.
Right.
That's a creepy, selfish person. Because if you had any awareness at all, the last thing you do is throw a fucking cigarette out the window, especially in California, where that's responsible for what
Fires,
percentage of the
yeah.
fires
Yeah.
that happen out here?
Right.
I mean, a
Ed-
lot of them are from people throwing cigarettes
You guys
out the
ever read
window.
Edward Abbey?
Nope.
Desert Solitaire. He was a famous, probably the most famous author who lived in Utah. He lived down in the south east around Moab. which is all red rock and arches, and it's fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
Completely different from where you guys were. But if you ever go back, go down there. It's like amazing. That's where those dudes like swing through the arches and stuff, doing all that
Well,
crazy
that's where
shit.
that asshole Boy Scout guy got arrested for pushing over one of those rocks.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's
Oh,
That's where
yeah.
they were. Right.
Idiots.
Idiots and
Yeah.
filming it. Good
Yeah.
idea.
It had been there for millions of years.
Anyway, Edward Abbey's this funny, like cantankerous, kind of like who were we talking about earlier? The Gonzo, Hunter S. Thompson, kind of that kind of character, right? And he wrote this book where he was cruising down the highway, throwing cans of beer out the window. Like he'd finish the beer and throw it out the window. And he was very popular among environmentalists. In fact, Earth First, that movement started based on one of his books called The Monkey Wrench Gang. But anyway, Edward Abbey was like, fuck it, the beer can's not the litter, the highway's the litter. Don't build the fucking roads, right? The garbage is already here. So, I mean, it's an interesting kind of twist.
Justification, if I ever heard one. What a douchebag throwing cans out the window and saying the road shouldn't be there. Fuck you. Fuck you,
I
you
mean, he's making
pretentious
the
asshole.
point. I don't
He's an
know. Read his
asshole.
book. Read his
Fuck
book.
him and
You
his
know about
fucking
Earth First.
Cans flying out the window. That guy's a
All
douchebag.
right. Without having read a word of his
I don't
work,
have to.
I might add.
He's a tin can.
I told you
throwing
one
asshole.
thing that would get under your skin.
It's a bad thing.
I mean, you guys
man.
know about Earth First, though?
Right, but
Sure.
what we're doing is
I
basically
mean-
highlighting what we talked about earlier. Is that someone can be a cunt and also be like really awesome at something.
Yeah.
And that's what it
Yeah,
is. And
yeah.
you're defending him, but you can't defend him. He's a cunt.
No,
The guy's
wrong,
throwing. See,
wrong.
you're doing it.
You
You,
know-
can't even help yourself.
And you know why you're wrong? Because we
I'm
don't
not
even
wrong,
know
I
that
set you up.
We don't even know that he actually did it. This is a book.
Okay,
So
if
he
he
wrote a
did-
book where he may have just said he did it as a way to make a point.
But by saying
Could
he
be.
did it, now he's giving permission to all these other
Yeah.
people to throw tin cans out the road. And the next thing you know, it's raining tin cans out of every asshole's fucking.
It's actually more.
the
diesel
handful
car.
that ruined it for the rest of
It's
us.
more of a cunt move to pretend that you did it and not really have done it, thereby greenlighting actual
Everyone.
cunts.
I'm throwing cans out. I'm an environmentalist.
But
The
you're
road-
like,
All right,
no,
here's
he
a
wrote
guy-
really good. He was awesome. He
Here's
wrote
the
good
guy who
stuff.
gets what 12 miles per gallon in your muscle car.
No, wait a minute. No, my car is a 6-cylinder.
But also,
Gets great
Joe's
miles.
not has never claimed to be an environmentalist. That's the
Why?
difference.
Why are you
Ah.
claiming that you understand how muscle cars work? I don't have a muscle car. I have a 911. It's
Mus-
a very light car.
Because
In
you
fact,
were saying earlier,
it's
like
the
you with
gas
the muscle
mileage.
cars, and it's you got to hear the
Yeah, they're
the
fun.
burn in the fuel
Right, but
and
I
the
don't drive
exhaust.
one of those.
You don't drive one,
No.
so you're just like Edward Abbey. You're just throwing out this bullshit, giving
No.
permission to
I have-
muscle car
I have a
owners.
different kind of muscle car. I have a different kind, but the kind that I have is not like that. It doesn't eat up a lot of gas.
No, this is
It's a
my.
German car.
Here's where I take issue with Edward Abbey saying that the goddamn street is wrong. It's
Yeah.
already trash. Fuck
He's
you,
on it.
Edward Abbey. I like driving on concrete. It's fun. I like I like the roads. The
He's
roads.
on it. He's on it. He's using it.
Yeah, I just think that the moment you start saying like, no, this thing itself is the corruption. You're the corruption, Abby. How about that? Like, just deal with your own
Exactly.
self. I think that's what it comes down to. Deal with the fucking pollution inside of you. You know, that's got to be it. Deal with what's going on in the tiny little acreage of nature that you are.
Right.
That's it. First start in there, and then like before you're looking at roads and deciding that roads are evil or whatever, first start in there. I'm talking to myself. I point my feet. I waggle my finger at just about everything and call it evil. So I'm a hypocrite in that. But I do think that the more you can pull your tentacles out of the world with all your tentacles pointing at this is bad and that's bad and that's bad, and bring it back into you and see if you can find peace in there. Find tranquility in there. If you can find equilibrium in yourself, you're probably going to stop doing a lot of the things that are causing pollution in the world. I bet. Maybe not, but I would bet that if you could find a way to like find stability and peace, you're going to treat people better. You're not going to be so inclined to do selfish things. When you're happy, you oftentimes become less selfish. Don't believe me? Chomp on some fucking ecstasy. Eat some really good MDMA and then see how you start acting. And you're seeing the way you act when you're in a bliss state. And generally, what do you do when you're on ecstasy? How often do you hear, yeah, man, I got on ecstasy and then got in a fucking bar fight. I just felt like beating the shit out of that guy. As being a real dick. It's like when you wake up from getting high on ecstasy, your regrets always involve being too effusive with your friends. Like I'll come to after an ecstasy trip and be like, oh God, I fucking told him I loved him. I told him I told him how important he was in my life, and that I'd never want. I'm gonna miss him, and you know what I mean. Those are your regrets. When you wake up after booze, you're like, oh, holy shit! I told that guy he looks like he's in Game of Thrones, and I told that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like it's internal environmentalism. You know,
I just don't think there's any way to justify littering like that. And you're justifying littering like that because there's something already bad there. It's a silly proposition. I think that if you sat down and talked to the guy, he'd probably agree. I mean, unless he's an asshole. Do you think you could ever justify throwing cans out the window? Could you ever justify throwing cans out your window?
I'd like to go to his house and shit on his carpet.
It's not a justifiable action. You're ruining things for everybody else, and if everybody did it, the whole thing would be ruined. Like when you drive through like the Boulder, like if you ever drive from Boulder up into the mountains, you don't see any garbage, man. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Cars drive through there every day. Nobody throws shit out the window. They have a great respect for what that place looks like. It's very rare you see any garbage on the ground. But what if everybody was like that guy and just threw cans out the window? You know, oh, this shouldn't be here. Well, yes, it should. It should, because that's how you use cars, dummy. And otherwise, it takes a long time to get anything done. All right, so either we all don't use cars and we all walk around a city, or you shut the fuck up and stop throwing cans out the window, asshole. That's stupid. What are you're in a car and you're throwing cans out the car because the roads. Get the fuck out of here with this. Smack that guy. Take his keys and throw him into the river.
All right.
Go get your keys, stupid.
But don't let this, listeners, don't let this discourage you from reading Desert Solitaire.
I'm sure the book's great. He's still an asshole. Look what you're doing. You're still defending him because of his writing ability.
Desert Solitaire. That's the name of the game he plays when he drives his car and throws his cans at fucking desert animals.
Yeah, we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that.
You know, as often happens, I'm cursed by seeing both points of view. I think
you have to be.
I think he's making the larger point that civilization itself is the toxin, and I agree with that.
Stupid. If it wasn't for civilization, you'd get eaten by wolves. It would be ridiculous. Life would suck a fat dick if it wasn't for civilization. What about you, man? You're no hunter-gatherer. If you didn't have civilization, what would you be doing?
That's a completely empty argument, which goes back to the idea that if, you know, you're born into a world, into a time and place. I'm not going to, what am I going to do? Say, hey, mom and dad, sorry, I'm going to go be a hunter-gatherer, you know? I mean, what the fuck? I'm not going to use my phone. I'm not going to drive a car. That completely invalidates any conversation because no one can ever criticize civilization at all because we all participate in it. So that doesn't make sense.
No, that's not saying that no one can criticize civilization.
Well, you're saying I should be a hunter-gatherer?
No, I'm saying civilization isn't all evil. It is what it is.
Okay,
it's
it is
like
what it is.
Growth.
There's no denying
it's certainly
that.
Like a growth or a movement.
It's a fungal growth.
It is what it is, but it does not necessarily all bad.
Okay, but wait a minute.
Oftentimes amazing.
Right, but you're moving to a different conversation, which is it all good? Is it all bad? Of course not. But what I'm objecting to is the idea, because I'm going to be dealing with this a lot in this book, that the idea that you can't criticize civilization if you participate in it.
Well,
that's
not.
bullshit.
But no one's saying that. That's not the argument. The argument isn't that you can't criticize civilization. It says civilization, much like almost everything, is incredibly nuanced. There's a lot of parts to it.
Yeah.
And some of the parts, I feel like most of the parts are fucking amazing. Most of the parts of not having to worry about most of the diseases that used to wipe out the population, not having to worry about gathering your food, not having to worry about sewage, not having to worry about information and education, not having to worry about social structures, not having to worry about being fucking invaded by rival Mongol herds and shit. The amazing aspects of civilization, in my opinion, far outweigh the cancerous element of the very human being.
Exactly. And now let me flip the whole thing back on you and say the reason you feel that way is that you were raised in civilization. So just like the Navajo call themselves the people, and the Apache call themselves the people, and the Iroquois, everybody believes that the time and place they live in is the place to be. And so a lot of your information about comparing civilization to pre-civilized times is mutated and distorted by the fact that you are from this time and place. Right? You've got a vested interest in believing that. For example, you said, oh, I wouldn't want to have to worry about dying from all these diseases everyone died from. Fact is, the top 5 killers of human beings, all those diseases jumped over to humans from domesticated animals. So they didn't exist in any important sense before civilization.
Oh, there's no doubt.
There was no tuberculosis, no influenza, no smallpox.
Sure. I'm well aware of that. And there's no doubt that everyone in every point in time throughout history was in the time that they were in and the best time for human beings, according to them. We justify that. We always justify that. Or we look back in the past with nostalgia, and that's what I think you do a little bit.
Sure.
And I do as well. I mean, I think I'm not saying that civilization is the only way to live life, and if we were living back in the tribal days of 6,000 plus years ago in the Amazon or whatever the fuck it was, when people were living without any possibility of anything being any different. The difference between us now and then is the incredible possibilities that civilization provides. I personally find those things enriching and fascinating, and I would way rather hang out with people of today than some asshole from 6,000 years ago that doesn't have the internet.
But you've never met that asshole. That's my point.
I'm not being honest. I'm fucking around. Do you understand how to talk to comedians?
I want to add.
We don't always say what we mean.
You're slippery fuckers is what you are.
I want to add something here. When I'm walking around a group of people, I've noticed that the way that I'm categorizing that experience shapes the experience itself.
Absolutely.
Oh,
So if I'm walking through a group of people and I'm thinking, here I am among the locusts.
Yes.
Look at them devouring the earth.
Yes.
If I think like that, then suddenly I am living I'm just basically another sticky little bit of scabies on some herpes infested prostitute's vagina. But then if I look around and think, wow, man, these are all expansions of the earth. These are all expressions of the universe. Here is the universe expressing itself in this is nature. Sure, I'm not in South America. I'm not surrounded by green and trees, and I don't hear the sounds of the jungle, but I am still surrounded by the natural world, taking a very specific form of manifesting in a specific way we call civilization. Right. And the moment I see it like that, suddenly things get better. It feels like I make connections more. It seems like it talks to you. Right. We talk to each other. We are the universe talking to itself.
So do you believe in God?
I believe in a higher intelligence. I think the word God is a real confusing word, but as a term of convenience, I'll say sure.
The reason I ask is that that's essentially how I look at religion. It's like people can choose to believe in something like that because it makes their immediate experience more pleasant.
Well, not to get into semantics, but I think you should separate religion from belief in God, because I think I think you pull those things away, and then you get into this idea of like, oh, you're just making yourself feel better, and so you're sort of deluding yourself to try to turn your eyes away from the raging fires of hell.
Right, because
really
the fact
existing.
is the locust vision and the enlightened beings and magic of the universe vision are both true.
Exactly.
I leave open the possibility of a higher intelligence just based on the fact that if you look at the senses that some animals provide, there's a lot of animals, a lot of life forms on this planet that literally don't have the senses to detect us. Because we're not involved in their world on a regular basis. There's certain animals, you wave your hand over a slug, they have no fucking idea you're there.
Yeah.
They don't care. You know, there's certain animals that are like that don't have the ability to perceive whether it's fungus or whether it's microorganisms or whatever it is. Why would we assume that this is the end of the line? Why would we assume that in our complex, very limited, in fact, we have so few senses, we have them numbered. I mean, why would we assume that those are the only senses to be had, and there's not some sort of next step, next dimension? I mean, the difference between oceanic creatures with no eyeballs and a person living in a penthouse in Manhattan might as well call that a different dimension.
Sure.
You might as well, because it kind of is. And why would we assume that this is the end of the line, that our ability to perceive and adjust our material world is the only one like that out there, and there's not something way more advanced that exists in the very fiber of the universe itself that we can't detect yet because we're primitive?
Well, it's like size, right? We assume size and time. We judge it from here. Like our experience is the zero in our number system, right? But things become infinitesimally small and they become infinitesimally large.
Yes.
So we're not at the middle of anything because there are no ends to it, right? But we just sort of randomly choose it and say, well, this is normal. Anything smaller than this is small. Anything bigger is bigger. Anything that goes faster than my experience of time is speeded up, and anything that goes slower is slowed down. It's like, well, what the fuck? Your assumption is bullshit there because it's based on nothing.
Yeah, light travels faster than what, you? Hold on. Wait a minute, you fucking crazy bitch.
Yeah.
It's also
it's
the
a strange
assumption of
thing.
the birth and the death of the universe itself. I've always wondered why
Right.
we need to attribute these biological characteristics, like birth and death, to the universe. Like, why would we automatically do that with no assumptions? No, we do it based on our own personal limitations. The fact that we know that we live and die, other things live and die. We're pretty sure planets live and die. We're pretty sure suns have a life and then they burn. We know it. The supernovas, we know that suns die out. We know our sun has a certain amount of time left and then it's over. We know it. So we just assume that the whole universe is like that.
Yeah, well, we use the term die to refer to that moment of radical change that happens in everything in the universe when it goes from being from one form to the next. But it isn't really a death. It's just a radical fucking change, you know?
Interesting. Yeah. We don't talk about the death of water when it becomes ice.
No.
You know, although melting has a little bit of death in it, maybe. you
Well,
know?
it's just change.
Yeah.
We're just like, that's the thing. It's like
Yeah,
we're in
you're
this
right.
constantly morphing, changing thing, this constantly changing world. And you get to, I think what you said about we're existing in these all these dimensions. One is the dimension where it's a bunch of locusts chewing up a living planet. Another dimension is where the living planet has sprouted sensory, I don't know what you call it. It's what
sensory organs. of the
sensory
universe,
organs,
right.
which are right. It's that, or it's like that.
Which are human
I
beings.
Which
think
are
it was
human
Carl
beings.
Sagan who said human beings are the universe looking back at itself.
Yes, there's that. And then these are considered like, Ram Dass talks about this, how there's these channels that you can dial into and you get to decide what channel you want to dial into. So if you want to live in like the Fox News dimension, you can live there where you're constantly, your fists are clenched, you're watching Bill O'Reilly, everything Obama does makes you want to fucking kill yourself or kill somebody else and your stomach is bubbling, you're chain smoking and listening to Rush Limbaugh and beeping at anyone who like cuts in front of you in the wrong way. That's a dimension. You're in a dimension. You're in a specific universe where you're at war with all these liberals, blah, blah, blah. Ann Coulter is the goddess, whatever. So like, but there are all these different channels that you can tune into. And one of them is this channel where you just believe that everything's perfect. And that is blasphemy to a lot of people. They don't want to fucking hear that. They don't want to hear that everything's perfect. Because then they say, look at the fucking radiation, Fukushima, Holocaust, people dying, cancer kids. The hyenas are killing the elk. We're all dying. Everything's on fire. The sun's going to supernova. How dare you say everything's perfect, you know? But if you start just playing around with that idea and tuning into that idea that no, this is perfect. This is a beautiful universe. I look out at the Hubble telescope, and I see those incredible, just deep fields of stars out there. And I see the supernovas, and I see all these things, and I don't think, oh, God, the violence of the supernova as it evaporates everything around it. I don't think, oh, God, the monster black hole sucking this dimension into it. And I don't think any scientist or cosmologist would look at that and be like, that is violence happening and evil. Yet somehow when it gets down to us, these little meaty things, that's where the thing's malfunctioning now? The black hole's fine. It's not evil. That's not a demon. The black hole's sucking fucking
Planets.
light into it.
Yeah.
That's not evil. But suddenly when it comes down to us, it's like, yeah, we're monstrous.
Yeah, asteroids kill the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
A fucking chunk of metal flying 45,000 miles an hour through space.
Yeah.
Slams into the earth and is several miles deep within the first couple seconds.
I say
Kills everything.
forgive us.
But you're right, too. You
Yes.
know, that's the thing.
You get to pick where you want to be.
That guy throwing cans out the window is still a douchebag.
Do you know that
Indeed.
locusts and grasshoppers are the same animal?
No, I didn't.
It's the same species?
Same animal.
The
Exact same animal. Yeah, what happens is you got a bunch of grasshoppers, right? If there's not enough food, below a certain caloric intake, they metamorphize into locusts and they swarm and take off.
Whoa.
Isn't that fun? I'm thinking about that a lot as a metaphor for human nature, right? Because we're talking about how fucked up the word nature is. And everybody's always asking me, having written this book and whatever, what is it human nature to do this, human nature to do that? It's like talking about locusts and grasshoppers. I think we become a different kind of being based upon our context.
That's not just insects. That's wild pigs as well. Wild pigs and domestic pigs are the same exact animal. And Steve
right.
Rinella was explaining that wild pigs, I forget the exact term, what the pig, what gender it is, but when they move out, like if like you get a wild pig and you release it out into the wild, within 3 weeks they start changing. Like their body changes, their snout extends, their hair becomes darker and coarser, and their tusks grow.
Like the Hulk.
Yeah, they grow these fucking crazy prongs. When you see a wild boar, that's the same thing as a domestic pig. It's literally the same animal.
Very
It's
interesting.
an animal that morphs when it has to take care of itself.
Yeah.
If you leave a wild pig in there they are. Look at the differences between those two animals. Those are the same animal, the exact same animal. But the one on the right is wild and the one on the left is domesticated.
So, human beings, there you are.
On the left. On the right,
Hunter-gatherers.
Sasquatch, maybe?
No, still human beings. That's the point. Still human beings.
Yes.
Yeah,
But they're
except wild
hunter-gatherer.
pigs fuck up their environment.
Yeah, hunter-gatherers,
They
I'm
do.
sure.
No, they don't.
Oh, well, they
Wild
fuck up-
pigs, they fuck up the golf course is what they fuck up.
They fuck up farmland.
They don't fuck up farmland. That's not the
Yeah.
that's not their environment.
There's
That's
the-
the point. They're
no-
disruptive to artificial environment.
Well,
But
it's
they-
not a point
no,
because
that's
they're
not-
they're not from here. They're not indigenous species. We brought them in entirely.
That's
there
true.
you go.
Which gets back to why the Aztecs were cannibals, by the way.
Yeah.
If
yeah.
pigs had existed in North America, they wouldn't have been.
Pigs are so crazy with how they reproduce. Deer only reproduce once a year, so they spit out a couple of fawns. Pigs reproduce all year round. They shit them out every 3 or 4 months,
Yes.
and they shit out like 8 or 9 of them.
Yeah.
If a good litter. But I saw a bunch of wild pigs, and they had like a whole crew behind them.
Oh, yeah.
Like they travel in these packs.
Yeah.
Like this is one video of wild pigs running through the woods. I don't know. I put it on my Twitter a while back. It's probably really hard to find it. But if you just find this video, it's the most insane thing you've ever seen. It's like you're watching The Lord of the Rings and a goblin army is like trudging through the town.
That's cool.
They're crazy, man.
Yeah.
We went hunting them, and we were in this place called Tejon Ranch. And where that door is, which is probably, 20 feet away, 30 feet away, that close, pigs were fighting in the bushes. And we're standing there with rifles, and the bushes are rattling like it's Jurassic Park, and you hear like going at it with each other, and
Yeah.
they have tusks and they're these crazy looking wild shaggy dark things. That's the same as Babe.
Yeah.
It's the same goddamn animal depending upon the circumstances. If they have to fend for themselves, if you take out all the aggression of the natural world so they don't have to be on point from the moment they're born, they don't have to be like aware of predators. Little piggies, they're not afraid of shit. It's the same animal.
Does
Same animal as a wild boar.
Without civilization.
Yeah, the universe is very complex, man, and there's so much adaptability within the natural world, in quotes, with the world of organisms. There's so much adaptability. It's absolutely, totally, completely fascinating.
Getting back to your point about, higher beings and why do we assume that we're the end of some spectrum,
Right.
Another indication for me is just I'm no mathematician, but there are some like mathematical principles that are just too fucking beautiful to be random. And I've had experiences traveling. I'm sure you guys have had experiences where it's like, holy shit, that can't have just happened. There's no rational way to understand how that just happened. But a sort of universal one, which I ended Sex at Dawn with, is the sun-moon thing. Do you know about this? So the moon is obviously a fraction of the size of the Earth, right?
1/4.
That-
1/4.
1/4, really? Is that right?
Yeah.
I would have thought much smaller than that.
No, it's
but-
extraordinarily large for a moon. In fact, that's one of the reasons why a lot of the ancients thought of it as a planet.
Yeah, it doesn't move like a planet, though.
No, it stays.
There's no
It doesn't
regressive-
spin.
regressive
It doesn't
motion.
spin. It spins around us, but it doesn't spin in the air.
Right.
It just floats around us. The same side is always facing us.
Anyway, so the moon's much smaller than the Earth, and the sun is far, far, hundreds of thousands of times larger, right? And as you said, the moon is this, very important. Obviously, it's important to every civilization or every culture that's ever existed. The moon is often seen as feminine because of the changes and its association with menstruation and so on and so forth. And the sun, obviously, is a super. Those are the two most important things that anyone's ever thought about. In terms of like immediately obvious symbols, and they appear to be exactly the same size in the sky, because the distance of the sun exactly compensates for its larger diameter.
That's interesting.
So you have to, if you take the diameter of the moon divided by the distance from the surface of Earth, it equals the diameter of the sun divided by the distance. So that those two things appear exactly the same. And you have these solar eclipses where the disk of the moon perfectly covers the disk
Right.
of the sun. That is mathematically like, how the fuck did that happen?
Well,
There's no reason mathematically for that to happen.
Isn't that a gravitational law, though?
No,
I think
no,
that's
it's
Bode's
not.
law.
It's not. If you look at in fact, I talk to people about this. You look at what the moons of Jupiter look like from the surface of Jupiter. They have no relation to the size of the sun seen from the surface of Jupiter.
Right, but Jupiter's a gas planet, right? Isn't that different?
Don't look at me, man.
Jupiter's not a gas planet.
It's not?
Saturn is.
Jupiter's not a gas giant?
I don't think so. We can look it
Yeah.
up. I know there's. Did you guys just watch Cosmos the other night?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Because there's a thing called Bode's law that based on the amount of mass that a planet has, you can accurately predict where the next planet will be. And it works, apparently. It's a Jovian planet. It's a large planet that is not primarily composed of rock or any solid matter. Yeah, it's a gas giant.
What happens if
There's
you
4 gas giants. Hold on a second. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Those are all gas giants.
What happens if you fall into a gas giant?
You're fucked.
But do you
Who
just
knows?
fall
Death.
through it?
It's a big swirling ball of death.
Like
Well,
if
it says not primarily. So
no condos,
there's some
that's for sure.
solids within it, right? I mean, it's
Yes.
like
Yes.
a
Yes.
conglomeration of.
It's just not primarily composed of solid matter.
is it
apparently.
muddy
So you
in
probably
there?
couldn't
No,
fall
it's
through
just
it.
fucking hurricanes of death. There's storms that have been going on since the beginning of time that are bigger than our planet.
Right, the
Way
red
bigger.
spot.
Yeah, it's just a storm. It's a
Yeah.
Earth-sized storm that's been going on forever.
Which is the one with that crazy shape at the top that spins around? Is that Jupiter? Saturn. You know what I'm talking about? The one that's
Oh
got that.
yeah, that's Saturn. Yeah, it's
Saturn.
got like a hexagon at the top of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it's really bizarre. It almost looks like a design, but so is everything. I mean, you know, the lower you get and you start looking at different aspects of nature, everything gets like. Look at ice crystals under a microscope. I'm like,
Oh,
they
man.
all like
like-
salt. Look at
It's like
salt under
little
it.
Sand.
elves made
Yeah,
of
Graves of
sand.
Sand. Have you seen that
Yeah,
book?
it's amazing.
This guy who takes micro photographs of grains of sand.
It's amazing.
Fucking wild, man.
Yeah.
All
The
different
jewels.
colors and
Yeah.
little pieces of seashells and coral and like they're all these wild crystalline things. You assume every grain of sand is the same.
Yeah.
Some
They're
jewels.
not. They're amazing. Yeah.
See, that's it. Once you start
The doors.
tuning into that channel that we're talking about now,
Yeah.
suddenly the locusts are gone. Now it's just like
Now the world's amazing.
it's
yeah.
like wow, look
Exactly.
at this beautiful place that we're in.
Oh,
It's
there you go,
incredible.
yeah.
Some pictures of sand.
Yeah. Wild.
Yeah, and you know those aren't uniform, but I mean there are many things in nature that are. I mean the Fibonacci sequence that exists in flowers and pine cones and
Yeah.
all these different things. I mean, is essentially perfect geometric patterns.
And that to me is God. And there it
Yeah.
is right
Yeah.
there all the time, right next to you. If you just take a little bit of time to get yourself out of the perception, whatever the perception is that you've become accustomed to. And that is like, that's what they call, I mean, in like occult systems or in magic, that's like one of the first things you want to do is to like pull yourself out of whatever your conditioned patterns are so that you could see the world as living, even for a moment. I really love chaos magic because it's like a postmodern form of magic that isn't based on like this magic is real, like Harry Potter shit. It's based on if you can change the way you feel, then you're going to change your life. You know, like if you can induce certain mood states inside of you, then you're going to be more inspired. You're going to write better. You're going to be a better athlete. So that's what it is. So the rituals that you use to induce those states, that's what magic is, or that's one form of magic. So it's like the idea is one really fun experiment you can do. It's really cool, man. This is in a book I read about chaos magic. You go to like a place where there's shitloads of people and you put yourself in a intentionally paranoid state. Not paranoid as in you're afraid, but paranoid is in the sense that everything happening around you is the universe conversing with you. For like 15 minutes, now the universe is talking to you. So every accident, every moment, every t-shirt that has something written on it, every song that you hear is related to answering whatever your question is. It's like an oracle or something like that. And because our minds consist not just of the conscious, but also the subconscious, suddenly you'll start seeing reflections of your subconscious in the workings of the world around you. And that can answer your question or give you some kind of like information that you're seeking. It really is the information coming from the world or inside of you. It doesn't matter if you find a solution that gives you a course of action to take that betters your life, you know? So it's good to not think that I don't mean to keep going back to this, but if you think that you're a plague, then that from a occult lens, that would be a spell that you're casting. That would be considered a rich, you know what I mean? That's like an actual, you're actually going to induce a specific reaction from the universe around you that maybe won't be so good. Because if you're a fucking locust, what's the universe around you?
I think there's no denying that there's several factors involved in your life and shaping your life. And I think there has to be some impact other than attitudinal, if that's a word, that comes out of the way you perceive things. That it might not just be, oh, well, you're looking at things the wrong way, you're going to be sad. No, it might be that you're shaping the energy that you produce, that you're shaping what you put out, you're shaping how people receive you, and that may in turn shape the very physical world around you the same way wolves change rivers.
Yeah.
And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make.
Yeah. I mean, basically, they figured that
Right?
shit out in the hippie days.
Yeah.
And isn't that what they meant?
Yeah.
At the end of that great song?
It's
And then
a
the
fun
government came
experiment.
in and threw gas on the whole thing.
Just get yourself all worked up in a nice paranoid froth, which I am quite good at doing, and then go into the world, and you'll notice everyone's a dick. Have you ever noticed that when you're really, like all of a sudden it's like, God, man, everyone's being such a fucking cunt today.
It's
and
so
then
true.
you realize
Every time I'm in LA, I notice that, man.
Well,
The
LA's too
traffic
tense.
creates
Yes.
aggression within me, And it's what you were saying earlier, like people cut you off, you get all angry. I used to, when I was traveling a lot, I first noticed this sort of phenomenon. I always thought of it as the on the crowded bus phenomenon. I get on the bus in Mexico, whatever, all the seats are taken. I'm standing there. It's a 5-hour bus ride. I'm like tired. I haven't slept. I've got diarrhea. And I'm sort of like leaning on the seat, and the dude whose shoulder my ass touches occasionally is kind of getting uptight. And I'm thinking, what an asshole that guy is. Fuck, I'm standing here, least he could do is let me lean on the seat without giving me shit, whatever. And then the guy gets off the bus, I sit down, someone else is standing there, and their ass starts touching my shoulder, and I get pissed off. And I'm like,
yeah, there you go.
it all depends on where I am,
Yeah.
Like I am such a fucking hypocrite because my perception of this situation is not accurate. It is accurate in both cases, but both cases are true.
Now imagine this. Imagine in either of those situations, you had just met a girl and fallen in love.
And you don't give a shit. Yeah, exactly.
Now all of a sudden,
exactly,
because
right.
you're in love, it doesn't matter if someone's rubbing against you. It doesn't matter. A
Right.
fucking dog could probably come and start chewing on your ankle, and it's going to suck, but you're not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's
And honestly, that's why I traveled so much, because traveling put me in the state of mind where nothing bothered me.
But the idea
Because
is,
I always felt so lucky and happy to be
Yes.
wherever the fuck I was.
so
you know?
here's the big question: can we induce that state of feeling love, in love, whatever you want to call it, minus a condition? So in other words, is there a way to actually, do we have the control, or is it already inside of us to find this place where we're constantly experiencing that feeling of intense love wherever we go? Because if you're feeling that, the traffic doesn't suck, nothing really sucks. I said this on Ari's podcast, which is like, do something you love with someone you hate, and something you hate with someone you love. And you'll see how potent the state of feeling in love is. Because if you do something you hate with someone you love, you don't hate the fucking thing anymore. But if you do something you love with someone who sucks,
It's no fun.
it's a miserable
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's also the question of, are you trying to have, in asking for this state of love and bliss and whatever it is that mystics are always guiding us toward, is that an illegitimate request in the sense that, is that an ultimately selfish request? You're saying, I want pleasure without pain. I want light without darkness. I want bliss without despair. Aren't those things, is there light without darkness?
For now.
For now, you'll get your darkness later. You'll get plenty of darkness coming your
now.
way.
For now.
Well, that's sort of how I feel. I
Yeah.
feel like, I've had if I tallied up my life, I would say it's 90% great.
I would say more than 90%.
Well,
look where you're at right now.
Yeah, no, whatever. I mean, but again, that's one of those things. Like
100%.
pick your perspective, and the valley looks different depending on
but
what
this
mountain you're
condition-
standing on. It's
Right.
always
This condition is 100% great.
Yes.
It's just a matter
Nothing's
how,
100% great.
No, this right now, this condition right now we're in is 100% great. There's nothing negative about it. We're putting out all this conversation. A lot of people are enjoying it. They're thinking. We're sparking ideas. We're having a good time together as friends. We're having a good time talking and stimulating each other. These podcasts are awesome. It's a really cool and unique moment. So for me right now, I'm having 100% good time, and this is what I'm judging. I'm judging life on this moment.
Yeah.
This moment, which it's all about maintaining your balance on this tightrope. How long can you stay at this moment?
Yes, that's it, man. The razor's edge, right? That's what they say in Buddhism. Walking the spiritual path is
Great book.
Is as tricky as
You
treading
read it?
upon the edge of a razor. Yes.
Yeah, beautiful book about a traveler.
I love the movie
and a seeker.
I like the movie too, The Razor's Edge.
I never saw the
Bill Murray.
Oh, Bill Murray.
It's fucking
That's
great.
right. Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's the thing. And I love, like the other day, man, I was taking a walk and I hit that fucking place.
By
man.
the river, the LA River.
I keep having that by the LA River when I go for these walks, and I'll hit this place where it's like, oh, this is amazing. This feels so good. And then I'll think, I want this feeling to last forever. And then it's gone because I'm trying to grasp at it. I'm trying to fucking hold it.
Yeah.
You know, that's that Neil Young song. Love is a rose, but you better not pick it. It only grows when it's on the vine. Handful of thorns, and you know you've missed it. Lose your love when you say the word mine.
Yeah.
You know, when you're trying to grab it, when you want it to last, when you're like, no, I don't want it to go away. It flees in terror.
How awesome is Neil Young?
He's the greatest, man. You should get him on this podcast. He's so cool.
He makes his own biodiesel.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know
Makes
that.
his own gasoline. He has a farm, and he makes his own gasoline to run a diesel truck with.
He used to live right here in Topanga.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
He's the
Where's
coolest.
he now? I want to stalk him. It's a bad motherfucker.
I want to stalk
I think
him.
he's
too.
still in LA somewhere.
I was working at Greatwood Center for the Performing Arts in Mansfield, Massachusetts, at a Neil Young concert once, and it was the craziest concert ever because people couldn't hear well. Like it was the setup wasn't very good that day for whatever reason, and so the people in the top, there was so much talking. Like the top area was like this grassy area. There was so much talking. It was like riots almost. And then people started lighting fires, and people had snuck in booze, and they had to shut the concert down. They had to literally stop the concert because there was so much chaos, and it was all in a Neil Young concert.
That sucks.
It was wild. It was wild being there. I put a jacket on over my security jacket. I was like, fuck this. I'm blending in the crowd. I zipped up and got the fuck out of Dodge. I think that was one of the last shows I ever worked. I was like, this job's just too fucking crazy. It's too dangerous. When shit goes wild and you see like this whole field filled with people partying. They're all fucked up, drunk, and they're lighting fires. I mean, it was just craziness. And then people are beating the shit out of each other randomly. Like you find like little packets of people beating the shit out of each
brawling?
other. Yeah. Brawls just broke out.
At a Neil Young concert.
Yep.
I mean, that's not Neil Young's
Massachusetts,
crowd.
son. Listen,
Really?
everybody in Massachusetts will punch you in the face. Okay,
Wow.
be well aware of that.
It is the truth.
Everybody in Massachusetts that you're in an argument with, you have a very good shot at getting punched in the face. That's just a fact.
Man, did you see that video of that riot that broke out at the basketball game? Like a riot broke out in the crowds. Like people were.
I'm not shocked.
When humans stampede, it's scary.
Happens all the time in Brazil at soccer matches.
Well, they
Crazy
decapitated
shit.
that guy. The referee stabbed. The referee got in a fight with someone in the crowd. Okay, a fan tried to stab the referee, and the referee wound up stabbing the fan, or the fan was attacking the referee. The referee stabbed him and killed him. Then the audience came down and ripped the guy apart, decapitated him, and removed his limbs.
The
referee.
Ooh.
The fans murdered the referee and cut his head off. And it wasn't just one fan that did this. It was like 28 people that did this. They tore this guy apart and cut his limbs off and cut his head off.
See, everything's perfect.
Well, the Buddhists say no snowflake ever falls in the wrong place.
No snowflake ever falls on the wrong decapitated neck.
It's all what the universe had planned. Don't go fucking stabbing people, and you won't get dismembered in front of a large crowd of soccer fans. Yeah, I mean, they've arrested a few people, but I don't know how that works. How many people can you charge for murder? Look at this Brazilian soccer referee beheaded by angry fans who put his head on a stake after he stabbed a player.
Jesus. That is old school.
Wow,
really.
they put his head on a stake. But look, man, all those primeval ways of dealing with things, all those
Lacrosse. You know how lacrosse started?
No.
It was a substitute for war among the Iroquois and the people who lived in northeast U.S. and that part of
Really?
Canada. So what they did was they developed this game, and the lacrosse, there was no field initially. There was like a hoop, that they would put on a stick in the one part of the woods and the other one in the other part of the woods. And they had the sticks and all that they would, and you would like fuck people up. You'd kill people along the way. You'd like stab people with your stick. And I don't know if this is true in all cases, but in many cases, the losing team, whoever was still surviving, would then be tortured and killed. So it was actually a substitute for war, kind of like chess.
Why not just go to war?
Well, that's what the Mayans did as well.
It's easier.
By the way, that doesn't sound like a substitute for war.
It's a type, it's a channeling of war.
Well, it's
think
limited.
about it.
It limits war.
It limits it, right?
Yeah, it's
women
like
and children
rules of
aren't killed. Are killed.
Right.
Yeah, and also, I mean, being tortured among those people. When you were talking about the Nez Perce earlier, I was thinking that sounded to me like the people in that part of North America and the East, because there was a lot of torturing and eating of victims, but that was seen as honorable. If you were vanquished in battle and captured
and eaten,
and you would be tortured and killed, running the gauntlet. That's from those tribes. And they would get everybody out there, old ladies, everybody, and you'd have to run down through this line, and they'd hit you with spiked sticks, and they'd just fuck you up as you went down this corridor.
These are the hunter-gatherers?
These are the
well,
perfect
so there were
people.
some were agricultural, but yeah.
These are the perfect people that he always talks about.
See, you guys.
Everything's
this
perfect.
is good training for
The
me.
universe is
you guys are
perfect.
actually harder to argue with than academics.
Did you ever hear?
former
Academics
nemesis.
don't have any humor.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Humor is the hardest thing to argue with because you look like a fool when people are laughing at you,
Dude,
no matter
I
whether
was-
your point is good or not.
Yes, in Sunday's New York Times, I was quoted saying, "Ted is many things, and humorless is generally one of them."
Well, you're right.
Yeah, I know.
You're right. It's unfortunate that
It's unfortunate
you
if
can't
they would
have both.
Yeah, what they did to Sarah, I think we probably talked about their whole Sarah Silverman thing. They trashed
And Eddie
her.
Wong. They made Eddie Wong stay. Eddie Wong's a fucking famous chef. They made him stay with other people.
Yeah.
They made him stay like as a college kid.
And then they trashed him when he left to
Yeah.
come do your thing. He's like, I'm
Exactly.
taking an afternoon off. No, you can't leave. What the fuck are you talking about?
They make you talk to people. They make you sleep where they want you to sleep. But they provide awesome content. But it's another one of those examples of just because something does something awesome doesn't mean it's not inherently fucked as well as being awesome. Werner von Braun was a cunt, but he was also a brilliant rocket
our
scientist.
cunt.
He was eventually our cunt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a part of the world. There's nothing perfect out there. People try, but so far it's never been achieved.
All right, let me throw this against the wall and see if it sticks. There may be something inherently cuntish about people who are high achievers.
They're just competitive. It's just you don't have to be inherently cuntish to be successful.
But
there's
you don't have
Richard
to be.
Branson
No, wait a
type
minute.
cats.
Don't switch it around,
No,
right?
I'm
I'm saying that people who are high achievers. There's a book called The Psychopath Test,
Right.
where he shows John Ronson shows that executives, high achieving executives, bankers, stockbrokers, military people, politicians, have a much higher rate of psychopathy than normal people. Right? So there's something about being a high achiever. You're willing to throw people under the bus. You're willing to stab people in the back. You're willing to do what it takes. You've got the fire in the belly. You've got ambition. Ambition itself is, and I know there are exceptions to this, but I think ambition itself is psychologically pathological because you don't want to be where you are.
I think ambition.
You want to get somewhere else.
Ambition without honor. Ambition without ethics, ambition without morals, ambition without a code, that's when you run into problems. It's not the ambition itself. It's the ambition represented in a form of fuckery. It's represented in cheating. It's represented in evil behavior. There's absolutely ethical competition. And anything less than ethical competition should be dishonorable and should be preferable to be poor. And that's the problem. There's a lack of honor and there's a lack of a code. And one of the reasons being is that our society and the rules that have been thrust upon us in many ways is so ridiculous that we reject it. Yeah, you shouldn't probably walk across the street randomly anywhere and jaywalk and make people slam on their brakes. But you shouldn't make me pay money because I walked across the street. Why do you get money because what is jaywalking? What is that? There's a lot of those things. Parking tickets and all sorts of stupid things about like speeding quotas, where fundamentally, yeah, you probably shouldn't speed. You shouldn't put people in danger. But who the fuck are you to pull people over and make them write paper? What? Because we elected someone to be in a position to control the traffic, and this is your solution? This is a stupid fucking solution, man. This whole thing sucks. You guys need to steal money from people every year just to pay your fucking salaries. You're not even funded. You're funded by the fact that people are getting robbed. You're pulling people over for rolling through a stop sign. You're a cunt. You know, the whole thing's cunt-ish. You're in a cunt business.
Right.
And that seems fundamentally to be the problem, is that we don't have codes, that we don't have a clear ethical structure for our society that's based on being nice to people and raising nice children and stopping abuse at the fundamental level of childhood and child rearing and making and developing shitty human beings that further instigate this problem.
I think we do have a code, though. The
Well, I
code
don't think
is
it's very
the
clear.
code is no, it's not clear, but I think ultimately the code is get away with whatever you can get away with.
But that's not true, because there's many people that are very happy because they've succeeded in life without doing that.
Okay, we celebrate. I don't remember which coach it was who said, "Winning's not the biggest thing; it's the only thing."
Well, that's
we
what you
celebrate
say.
that.
That's what you say when you're trying to motivate players. It doesn't mean that that's what people really feel.
But have you seen that Alan Watts animation, the South Park animation? Have you seen that?
Seen some of them, yeah.
Have you ever seen the Alan Watts South Park animation? Can we play that? You know that I'm talking about? I can find it for you. I'll find it. It's so good.
Aren't there a bunch of them?
There's one that I'll find that's totally related to this. Hold on.
Go ahead, Duncan.
Thank you.
Well, people celebrate people that have a code. The code is not like the celebrated
but
code.
I'm
is not
saying on
do
a
anything
social
you can.
level. On a social look, I mean,
Even
look at who
socially-
gets the most money. Who gets the most
we don't
money? Not
celebrate-
ethical people.
But we don't celebrate that in its entirety. We don't celebrate making the most money at all costs. We don't celebrate that.
Well, we do
hate
celebrate
those
it.
people.
No, we do celebrate it by
no,
giving
no,
them
no.
the money. That's the point.
But
That's the
not
structure of
celebrating.
celebration.
We look down on those people. We get angry at those
They don't
people.
give a fuck
But they
how
do.
we look. No, they
do.
don't.
Oh,
They don't.
See, that's where we disagree. I think every person who's not completely out of their fucking mind thinks about what other people think about them.
All right, then we're back to money being toxic. But I'm just saying on a
But
on
no,
a
we're not. We're
what-
not necessarily money being toxic. It's
all
a
right.
simplification, I think.
You are slippery.
Let's-
slippery.
let's-
No, it's a
I'm
simplification.
saying, okay, all I'm trying to say is, on a social level, social construct, most resources go to those who win at whatever their thing is. Best if they're in banking and finance, because that's where more money's going these days, and not if they do it unethically. The society rewards winning. We talk about politicians who have the fire in the belly, who have the ambition, who have the need to be leaders and so on. Those are not healthy people. The people who should be our leaders are the people who aren't interested in being our leaders.
Yes, I agree with you
So
on
there's a
that.
structural distortion in our society that celebrates something that on an ethical
Yes.
level we don't agree with.
Can I show you guys this thing? Because it really sums up what
Okay.
you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Sure.
Play that video. It's so good. The South Park people animated all these Alan Watts things. It's so good.
We don't hear anything.
In music, one doesn't make the end of a composition the point of the composition. If that were so, the best conductors would be those who play fastest. And there would be composers who wrote only finales. People go to a concert just to hear one crashing chord, because that's the end. But we don't see that as something brought by our education into our everyday conduct. We've got a system of schooling which gives a completely different impression. It's all graded. And what we do is we put the child into the corridor of this grade system with a kind of, come on, kitty, kitty, kitty. And yeah, you go to kindergarten, you know. And that's a great thing, because when you finish that, you'll get into first grade. And then, come on, first grade leads to second grade, and so on. And then you get out of grade school, you've got high school, and it's revving up, the thing is coming. Then you're going to go to college, and by Jove, then you get into graduate school. And when you're through with graduate school, you go out to join the world. And then you get into some racket where you're selling insurance. And they've got that quota to make. And you're going to make that. And all the time, this thing is coming. It's coming. It's coming. That great thing, the success you're working for. Then when you wake up one day about 40 years old, you say, my God, I've arrived. I'm there. And you don't feel very different from what you always felt. And there's a slight letdown because you feel there's a hoax. And there was a hoax. A dreadful hoax. They made you miss everything. We thought of life by analogy with a journey, with a pilgrimage, which had a serious purpose at the end, and the thing was to get to that end, success or whatever it is, or maybe heaven after you're dead. But we missed the point the whole way along. It was a musical thing, and you were supposed to sing or to dance while the music was being played.
Live your life, bitches.
Yeah, isn't that
Alan
cool?
Watts. Alan Watts is a bad motherfucker.
Yes, he was, man. Yeah, totally. You know, so that's the ambition that you're talking about. It's
Yeah.
like when people are always rushing ahead and rushing
Right.
ahead, trying to
That's
get to
just
this.
a lack of balance.
Yeah.
It's that's, you know, when we were talking about the bankers and the people that are handling the money, what percentage of our population is actually bankers versus what percentage of our population is actually ambitious?
Versus what percentage of the resources of our society go to those people.
We have a corrupt
It's
system.
insane.
It's just a corrupt system, and once people are in power, they're very reluctant to give away any of that power,
Yeah.
and so they keep lobbying and bribing, essentially,
See,
people to keep the laws in place.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason I'm arguing so vociferously about this is that I think that you're right. It's not clear because we've got a two-track system. We've got an ethical system that tells kids, be nice to each other, you know, blah, 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 the golden rule. But the structure underlying the fundamentals of our society are sending the opposite message. They're saying, fuck everybody,
Yeah.
get yours.
I don't think they are, though.
But
I think
I'm saying
this is why it's a simplification, because we obviously have rules in place to keep people from stealing. We obviously have rules in place to prevent
But as Duncan
fraud.
said, not if they're inside the system.
But
That's
no,
the
but-
point. If you steal
That's
$100
what
million,
House of Cards is all about.
nobody went to jail for what happened in Wall Street. Nobody.
Right.
All those banks you talked about in Miami laundering drug money, they've been doing it for decades, hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Nobody's ever gone to jail for that.
Right, but that's not out in the public, and that's not out in the open. What's out in the public and what's out in the open is what's, you know, what we hear about in the news and what, you know, the
Exactly.
perceptions
It's the poor
that have
people
been
getting hauled
projected.
away, the skinny
Sure.
guy in handcuffs. So what I'm saying is there's this fundamental hypocrisy at the heart of American society and many other societies, but particularly American society, where the ethical message is in direct contradiction with the fundamental values of the way the society is structured.
I see what you're saying then about corruption being because of human ambition, and that human ambition, when it gets into positions of power, ultimate power corrupting ultimately, that there's almost no way to avoid it. That maybe it's just that human beings should never be in that kind of a position of power. Maybe something like a corporation where you can go outside of the laws of human one-on-one interaction. Maybe something like that just really should have never been allowed to take place. Because as soon as you allow people to have groups and those groups to have massive influence and then them to benefit personally from that massive influence, the decisions that they make affect so many people and are so gigantic, they're almost anti-human. And that's essentially what people always accuse corporations of being, anti-human. It's because they've become a part, unwittingly, of a much larger organism that needs people to live off of but isn't a person.
And it's whose interests don't align with those of human beings.
Yeah, so it's not even like human ambition is what a problem is. The problem is when it gets funneled into these giant groups, because one person on their own doesn't really have that much power. They have the power that they can physically, you know, do whatever they can do with people around them, but most of the time when, you know, you're fucking around, you're one person and you know, you're subjugating a bunch of different people, they'll attack you. They'll go after you. What the problem is when things become so big, they can no longer be attacked.
And shame is no longer an effective form of controlling.
Doesn't mean anything to
because,
them.
like, hey, I don't give a shit if I'm like destroying the Amazon with my oil wells because my friends like me, because I throw good parties and I take them out on my yacht.
all do it. We're all doing it. Everyone's doing it. I'm destroying the Amazon. You're destroying it. We'd all be together in it, and we'd sort of justify it in some sort of a way.
Yeah, there's the locust.
Louis
again.
Theroux was on. He was talking about Fred Phelps and that crazy Baptist church, Westboro Baptist Church. He spent 3 weeks with the guy, and he said that one of the weirdest aspects of his trip was that after 3 weeks, although it didn't change his views of the world, and he thought all the things they were saying, you know, God hates fags and all that was very horrific, it became normal and commonplace. It became like the impact of it was less because he had been around it for so long that he had been sort of acclimated to it. And he thinks it's one of the ways that these people get away in their own mind with doing this and sort of connecting it to the idea that this is God's word is because they just get so accustomed to it. They get acclimated to madness.
They get tuned
as
in.
do we all.
As we are.
Right? That's
As
the
we
thing.
are.
That's what we're so
But
good
you
at.
get
as
to
a species.
decide what you want to
Yes.
harmonize with, and if you're like you, that's what I'm saying. You get
A
to
little
decide.
bit, a little bit if you can. But if you're
Yeah.
a child or if
Right.
you're raised in a terrible fucking place where you can't get out and you're stuck there as an adult.
Books, man, books are the
Okay,
greatest tuning
right,
forks
if they
there.
exist. If they
Yeah.
exist. But then it brings back to the internet, because that's what I always say is the great savior of the human being. Because the internet connects all the ideas together to everyone, everywhere, whenever it's available.
And you have to decide what you're going to look for.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. What are you mining for? If you're mining for demons, there's a part of this mind that's filled with fucking demons. But you can harmonize. That's the thing. You can tune in. For sure, and there are lots of different ways to do that. You know, it isn't hopeless. This is that joke. I've actually given up the joke because I can't make it funny, but I've been saying it. Being in the United States is like being a cell in the body of a very healthy serial killer. You know, and it's like so the thing to do is not to try to destroy the organism or try to you're not going to be able to fight against an entire thing. It's to fix yourself. That's what it is. Fix yourself. But
you fix yourself, then you become the cancer cell because you're disruptive to the dominant logic of your host, right? So
hopefully it's not. Hopefully, the idea is if you get one really fucking happy person, and that happy person is going to change the people around them.
It's true.
Well, that nun, did you hear about this nun who just went to prison? She's in her 80s in Pennsylvania. She was one of these nuns who broke into some top secret defense lab in Pennsylvania or Maryland. They went in at night and nobody caught them, and they went in. They didn't hurt anything, but they were demonstrating how unsecure the information there was and how easy it would be. Wow. And they stayed there peacefully and got arrested. I think it was a nun and 2 priests. And she just went to prison. I mean, she became, disruptive to.
Look at Snowden as another example.
Yeah, sure. Bradley Manning,
Snowden. Manning and Snowden. If you look at that, they tuned into a higher frequency, which is the frequency of justice, of truth, of what's right, a higher ethic. He tuned into that, and he sacrificed everything for it. Now he's a hero, and he's created change. Big time change in the body of the serial killer. He didn't fix it, but god damn it, that's not going away. People aren't forgetting the fact that they're being monitored. That didn't go anywhere. That's constantly going to be that would be an example of a serial killer having something go from the subconscious to the conscious. Where suddenly the serial killer is like,
it's a kidney stone
shit,
in a serial
man, maybe
killer.
I'm killing people every day. I don't know if this is really good. It created a little bit of indigestion in society, And one person did that. Yeah. That's one person doing what he thinks right.
Yeah.
So what happens if we get 5 of those people? And then what happens if you get 20 of those people? The change could be so drastic and radical that it would make your head spin.
Well, I think he's going to be looked at in the future as a revolutionary.
Yeah.
He's going to be looked at as a guy who sacrificed his own safety to save the culture. And, when you see that guy do that video conference from South by Southwest and there's a giant standing ovation, what other person who's being shielded by another country, a country that we always think of as evil, gets treated like that?
Right.
What other criminal that's running from the long arm of the government? He's hiding. Literally, he calls himself like a large house cat. That's what he says. He's he has the life of a domestic house cat because he doesn't go outside.
Wow.
He just lives inside the house.
And if he did go outside, it would be Russia, which also sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. And he's probably on some giant list of death wishes. Of people who they want dead.
It's too bad the WikiLeaks guy is as fucked up as he is.
Because I'd love to. What way?
Well, he's apparently a real asshole and very egotistical and manipulative and narcissistic. And
I would reserve judgment until I met him. I really would. I think, imagine how much character assassination has been doctored up about that guy.
Shit.
If you're going to come up with one guy to character assassinate, it would be Julian Assange. He looks like a douchebag. He's got silver hair. There's videos of him dancing. It's so easy to just say that guy's a cunt. But I don't know that guy.
God forbid any video of me seriously dancing emerges on the fucking internet.
Anyone could easily take a point of view of either one of us, especially if they, had us stuck in a house somewhere, that you were a total piece of shit because you become some gigantic controversial figure and you might have jeopardized American safety by releasing military secrets. And there's so many variables there that it's so easy to label you a cunt. Plus, you look like a cunt. He looks like a cunt. His fucking silvery hair and his fucking posh accent. Fuck that guy. That's what everybody thinks. And then you hear all this crazy shit about him, being creepy to women. And, I saw that coming.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a setup, that whole rape thing. I mean,
well, it's certainly a
silly.
really transparent way to try to get him out of the country. I mean, that's the most transparent shit ever. Oh, you're not worried about the WikiLeaks thing? You're worried about he might have had sex with someone?
Yeah, someone who actually invited him over for another night after the event.
Yeah.
And what she was pissed off about wasn't that he fucked her, it's that he fucked her without a condom.
Yeah, in the middle of they were lying naked in bed.
Right.
He got a boner, he stuck her in, and she got mad. Come on. Even if she did get mad, which, by the way, she does have every right to get mad, how'd that become an international incident? How is that something where you're fucking locking some guy up?
Right.
What kind of a balance does that show when you look at what people are getting arrested for and not getting arrested for? Yeah, that's a shithead thing to do, and that girl shouldn't hang out with that guy anymore. But if you did go out with him again afterwards, well, people are allowed to make mistakes. But you're not allowed to lock that guy up in a fucking house for a year and have armies waiting with loaded guns standing outside to take his fucking head off before he can testify.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's the thing. It's creepy when you think about the trajectory, because I remember they were talking about, okay, well, what if he does go back to stand trial? Is there a possibility that there's an extradition policy where they could put him back in the United States? And like, well, yeah, they do have an extradition policy. And then it's like, okay, so wait, there's an extradition policy. He goes to the United States. Is there any potential he could be executed for what he did? I'm like, well,
yeah, it's treason.
It's a little unlikely, but yes, he could be executed.
He will no doubt be arrested and jailed forever.
Yeah.
And probably killed in jail before he even gets to trial.
Maybe not. Maybe he'll be stuck Manning style in solitary confinement, naked,
exactly,
in a cold cell where you barely stay
given
alive.
Fucking barium, like I was telling you.
Yeah.
Did you know about that?
Yeah.
Fucking chemical waterboarding, just being given fucking larium. Read my friend's book, The Answer to the Riddle Is Me. It's great. He got amnesia in fucking India, but that's
Larium. Well, explain to people. People don't know what Larium is.
Well, Larium is it's an anti-malaria drug that it can, for a small percentage of people who take it, it can accumulate in your brain, and then suddenly, in my friend's book, he describes it as putting your thumb on top of a hose on one of your neurons. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, but it's like basically I'm going to say it in my own way, the dumb way. It's like your brain juice goes spraying all in the wrong places, and then you end up completely losing your fucking mind. My friend forgot who he was, had no idea who he was. He lost all of his memories, had to be reminded of what his life was, had to go through all his pictures. This is all in this fucking great book, and I do want to plug it because he's one of my best friends. The Answer to the Riddle Is Me. So fucking good. But in this book, he talks about the history of Larium, and then he talks about how at goddamn Guantanamo Bay, they're giving this drug to people who they know causes amnesia and insanity. They're giving it to people in Guantanamo Bay in massive doses, and apparently there's no malaria there. There's no mosquitoes that cause malaria there. So why the fuck are they giving these people this drug? It's sinister, man.
So they're giving them the drug just to erase their memory. It's essentially like their version of what the aliens do to you after they check your butt.
Yeah, exactly. They're just fucking with their brains. It's a psychedelic. When your brain malfunctions on Larium, it's basically like you're on acid for a couple of months. Like, you don't just lose your memory. Walls bend. There's a suicide note that in his book of a guy who was just talking about how it's been like 3 years and he's still exactly as fucked up as he was when he started taking Larium. It's a note to his family. But the point is...
And that's a guy who was never charged with a crime, by the way.
Right.
That's
exactly.
Fucking
so
crazy.
that's what I'm saying. So fucking Assange comes back here. It's not just like they're going to lock him up. It's like they're going to be injecting all kinds of weird shit into his body. They're going to be filling him with weird chemicals. That's spooky, man.
It's very spooky. It's very spooky, and it's very strange how many people don't see it that way.
Yeah.
How many people see, well, if everybody did that and they gave away the United States secrets. What is the United States? It's a collection of humans. And at the very top of that collection, what exactly are they doing? They're doing what? They're doing this. They're shooting missiles at fucking minivans filled with kids.
Yeah.
They're working for corporations.
Yeah. What are they doing? They're extracting money.
National interest.
Hey, speaking of books, did you and Louis Theroux talk about his dad at all?
No.
You know who his dad is?
No.
His dad's a really well-known writer.
Really?
Yeah,
Didn't know that.
He's probably the most famous travel writer in the world, Paul Theroux. He wrote The Mosquito Coast, great movie. Harrison Ford.
Oh yeah, that's
No
great.
kidding.
Yeah,
No,
he wrote
I don't
that
think
book.
he brought that up. It was a great conversation, though. He was really fascinating.
Yeah, I watched like the first half of it.
He's great.
And, he's such a cool guy. Very,
very,
love
very
his
nice
show.
guy. He thinks I'm in a cult, though. He thinks I've started a cult. I could tell. He was examining me.
Is he based in L.A.?
He is now. Yeah, but you know the way he does his shows, you could tell he looks for like cults everywhere. He looks for like.
Did you tell him to shave his
Bizarro.
head?
Not
Peculiar
anymore.
Americans.
I stopped telling him that. Told him a couple times.
Tells
He didn't
everybody to
listen.
shave their head.
Well,
I
he's
tell
got a
everybody
big
that's
beard
worried-
now. He's got
Yeah.
the Jesus beard.
He
going.
broke out the beard on the website. It was the first time he ever did it. It was on the podcast. First time he
Cool.
ever showed the beard. I was very proud of that.
So what about this LSD tainted meat in a
Some-
Walmart?
yeah,
Who's
some
injecting
asshole.
LSD into
Now
meat?
on
people.
Reddit they said Reddit. I mean, I didn't someone I don't know. I didn't examine this, but he said that LSD, if you cooked it in meat, it wouldn't last. It's a very delicate chemical.
Good
and
point.
I've heard that also about the French case where the CIA dosed all these people's bread. There was supposedly an experiment that the a French town that the CIA dosed an entire town.
Wait
and
a
observed them.
minute.
Remember this?
I suspect that story might be
I gotta take a
a
leak.
mixture. Saint Vitus's fire, I think it's called. There's a story about the witch hunts, and some anthropologists went back and looked at towns that had the most sort of crazy witch hunts in the medieval period, and he found that the year previous to that there had been an unusually high level of rain, and so ergot, which is a fungus that grows on rye and wheat and some other grains, had grown a lot more, and ergot also contains LSD. Right.
I think it's actually a late frost, but I think you're right. I think it was
it a late frost?
I think it's
There's
a late
some-
frost
yeah.
that's the issue. But this was
so
not,
it was in the bread.
Yeah, this was not that case though. This
Yeah,
was something different. And that's one of the things that they used with the Salem witch trials. The Salem witch trials they blamed on ergot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they think that when all these people were freaking out about being hexed, and that's probably what was going on. They were probably having really intense psychedelic experiences. A 50-year-old mystery of the cursed bread of Point Saint-Esprit, which left residents suffering hallucinations, has been solved after a writer discovered the U.S. had spiked the bread with LSD as part of an experiment.
Ooh.
1951, a quiet, picturesque village in southern France was suddenly mysteriously struck down with mass insanity and hallucinations. At least 5 people died, dozens were interned in asylums, and hundreds afflicted. For decades, it was assumed that the local bread had been unwittingly poisoned with a psychedelic mold, but now, however, an American investigative journalist has uncovered evidence suggesting that the CIA peppered local food with the hallucinogenic drug LSD as a part of a mind control experiment at the height of the Cold War. Yeah, but I don't know what the reference is. This is because this is in the Telegraph. Is the Telegraph like the Daily Mail, or is it more legit?
I think it's in between.
Close.
It's not the Guardian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have all these scientists.
Well, they definitely were fucking around with LSD. The whole COINTELPRO thing.
Oh, they did that with. There's plenty of videos where they did that with soldiers, and
Yeah.
that's also with the Harvard LSD studies. It was what created the Unabomber. You know, the Unabomber was a part of the Harvard LSD studies, and when they did him, after he got dosed up, he became a fucking nut. And that's what happened with him. Ted Kaczynski was in the Harvard LSD studies, and that's one of the things they tried. There's a documentary on it called The Net. And it's about that very situation. And Ted Kaczynski being a part of the Harvard LSD studies, and they don't know what the fuck they did to those kids. They dosed the shit out of those kids. And he went from there to become a professor, saved up all of his money from school just to be able to buy this cabin in the woods, live there, and plot the demise of technology. Yeah, he became a fucking complete nutter. I mean, whether or not he was a nutter before that, who knows? But the fact remains is that guy was a part of the Harvard LSD studies, and they're very secretive about what actually went on in those studies.
Which studies are we talking about? At the Divinity School?
I'll tell you right now, Ted Kaczynski.
Because they did studies with Divinity School students at Harvard, and then Leary and Alpert, now Ram Dass, gave psilocybin, I think it was, to some of their students, but relatively light doses as far as I know.
Yeah, but that's the problem when you say that, as far as I know. I don't know what they did either, but if I was fucking up a bunch of people's brains and afterwards people came to interview me, I'd say relatively small doses.
Have you seen?
We didn't create any Unabombers or anything.
Have you guys seen that image of ergot under a microscope? Have you seen it?
I'm sure I have.
Have you seen that, Joe? It looks like mushrooms.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, this is here it is. This is in 1959. Ted Kaczynski was he was absolutely a part of it. 80 sophomores administer a series of scales of questionnaires dealing with various dimensions of personality. Pick 25 subjects, some extremely high, some extremely low, and some in the middle of each of these scales. Study 25 subjects over a year period by the multi-form method of assessment. Come up with 700 rank orders using a computer. Obtain clusters of intercorrelating correlations factors, but final decisions are reached after prolonged discussions and reassessments. Enormous amounts of data, which staff analyzes, interprets, and formulates while they're on LSD.
Does it say anything about LSD?
Yes. This is part one of this whole thing.
Yeah.
They also no evidence LSD was ever used. Hold on a second. This is all very complicated shit, apparently, and it's hard to discern what exactly was going on during this. These studies.
By the way, I
unless
just
you talk to
want
those
to put
students and
in.
professors.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. Man.
While you're looking at it, I want to put in a good word for the Unabomber.
Good dude.
I'm not convinced.
Great chef.
That he's a nut.
What?
I think that he took his line of reasoning too far. Obviously, he's killing people, but we could say the same thing about all sorts of politicians and leaders around the world who kill people over an idea that they take too far. But I think his fundamental argument against civilization has some merit. I'll just say that. And then the other thing I wanted to say is there's a difference between pedophiles and pederasts. And it's something I didn't really understand until I started talking about pedophiles, and somebody wrote to me and pointed out that a pedophile is someone who has sexual attraction for people that we consider too young to be appropriate, whether that's at 18 or 16 or 12 or whatever, generally prepubescent though. And a pederast is someone who acts on it.
Oh. Huh.
And there's that's an important distinction, because I remember reading this thing in Dan Savage's column where somebody wrote into him and said, look, I'm attracted to kids sexually. I would never touch a kid. But it's in me. I can't help it. It's in me. I want to, and I want to get therapy. I want someone to help me strengthen my resolve never to do this. But by law, American therapists have to report you if you express a sexual desire toward children. So this guy is fundamentally prohibited from seeking any help. There are no group therapy sessions. There's no, if you've got that in you, and we know that, kinks of all sorts get placed in a personality and you can't get it out, but you can learn to deal with it, choose how to enact it or not enact it. But pedophiles have no opportunity for that. In Canada, they do, but in the United States, they can't.
Yeah, they sealed the records from Harvard, class of 1962. They sealed all the records on Kaczynski, and they won't release them. But he was absolutely a part of something called the Murray Study, and the Murray Study was the Murray Center seals Kaczynski data. This is fucking fascinating shit, man. They might have cooked that dude's brain. And created a monster. But you're right, though. He sees the future of the industrial society. That is what he was describing. You're right that he sees, like, oh, my God, this can only go one way. But in his crazed state, where he wasn't able to dance and play music like Alan Watts suggested, he was only able to focus on the finish line of the machines taking over the world.
Yeah, and he turned into the monster.
He's a way bigger monster than the society that he was trying to destroy.
And what a disservice he did for his message, because now there's a fucking mail bomb underlining everything he did. So even if there was a bunch of good stuff, he shit all over his own work because he didn't have the foresight to understand that you're using the tools of the people that you're so angry at to try to change the people you're so angry at.
Like every terrorist, right?
Yeah.
Well, everybody who thinks that they're right. The Net is the documentary, the Unabomber, LSD, and the Internet. Really fascinating stuff. I recommend it. Very interesting. And, the reality of the United States experimenting, whether or not they really did this with this French town, I should probably throw that into Snopes, right? Maybe the Snopes will be able to tell me that's not true. Let's Snope it.
Snopes is great. It's a heartbreaker, though,
great.
sometimes.
Yeah, but those heartbreaks are important. Okay, French bread, Snopes. They must have it. It's just the message board. The message board is really tricky.
They haven't.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it, though, I have read about that, and not that that makes it true, but I have heard about that in the past.
Well, they do. I mean, we know that the CIA was dosing people.
Oh,
so
sure.
who
Yeah.
knows how
Left and
far.
right.
There's no question that they did do it. And that's one of the problems with being a black and white sort of a person.
Yeah.
Like being a yes, the government's good, or no, the government's bad. You know, it's really hard to be either or, because there's a lot of crazy shit going on. And I find that a lot of these people that are never willing to entertain any conspiracy theories at all, one of the reasons why they do it is because they don't want to be thought of as a fool. They want to be a no-nonsense person, and a no-nonsense person almost always sides with the official story.
Right.
They think that
Which
there's...
is nonsense.
Yeah, which is nonsense.
Yeah.
Many,
Usually.
many times. You know, my favorite one is just the idea of the conspiracy of 9/11. You know, I've had this with many people that are no-nonsense type, and you say, do you believe that 9/11 happened? And if they say yes, you go, well, then you believe in conspiracies.
Right.
Because no matter who did that, that was a fucking conspiracy.
Right.
I forget who. I would like to give someone credit for that quote. I don't remember who it was, though. I think it was one of us, I think. I don't know who it was. Might have been me. I don't know. It might have been somebody else. But I remember that thinking that for the first time is like such a great and elegant way to describe the potential for conspiracy.
Yeah.
And that people don't want to look at the potential for conspiracy. They want to pretend that everything is exactly as CNN tells you. And other than that, it's just a bunch of shit that's a little wishy-washy to protect terrorism or you from
Right.
terrorism.
Yeah, well, or it's depending on what side of the fence you're on, you know? Like if you're getting cluster bombs dropped on you by robots, then that's a terrorist act. If
Well, the most terror. It's a fucking robot that can't even tell whether or not you're the right guy to go after.
truly is a terror inducer. I mean, the United States induces terror in so many people all the time.
Well, how about this latest revelations that they use metadata to find cell phones? They used the data that says that this is your cell phone, and they want to get you, so they shoot a missile at the cell phone, hoping you're near it. Like, that is one of the most evil, indiscriminate acts of destruction and murder that you could ever possibly engage in. You don't care if there's babies next to that cell phone playing fucking Candy Chase on it or whatever these fucking games are the kids play these days. Candy Cluster, whatever it is.
Candy Crush.
Candy Crush.
Saga.
Yeah. You're just shooting at a phone. I mean, the idea that you're just
You're a
shooting at a
baby.
phone, that's insane.
Have you seen like, and then you see Obama in Between Two Ferns. Did you see him with
I haven't
Galifianakis
seen
in
that.
Between Two Ferns?
When did he do that?
It's today. It came out today.
Whoa.
And you just see this really, like, he seems so affable. He's like the sweetest murderer. Like, you look at him, you're like, God damn it, man. He just seems really hip and cool. And like, but it is interesting how like they are using, they're getting savvy. You know what I mean? They're really smart about getting their stuff out
Well, I
there.
think
But
he
see,
is
that's-
cool.
yeah,
I just think
that's-
that you can't
exactly.
be anything other than the president of the United States when you're the president of the United States. It's like people
Right.
used to say to me, why don't you say more funny shit when you're hosting Fear Factor? Well, because that wasn't my job.
Right.
My job was to sort of host Fear Factor. His
Right.
job is to, terrible analogy. I know. I'm not making Fear Factor in the president of the United States, but I think he might, it might be a good analogy because I think he's an actor. I think
Right.
he plays a role, and that role is the role of the leader of the free world. And I don't think there's no leader. There's a bunch of fucking people that influence whoever is in the position
Right.
that they call the
Right.
leader.
And we don't see them.
Yeah, and I don't think we're ever going to really get a handle on how the whole thing is fucking working. I just don't think we will, but you can get a good indication either one of two things about Obama. We think he's affable and he's very friendly and nice, which I agree with. So if that's the case, why has he done things differently once he got into office than what he said he would do before he got into office? Is it because once he got in there, he realized that this world is way more fucked and way scarier than anybody could possibly imagine that's not inside the White House? Or is he just being influenced by some unbelievably powerful machine that he can't do anything about? So he's forced to sort of placate these people that got him into positions of power and do their bidding regardless
Right.
of what his campaign promises are. Either option is not good.
But you do look at the economy now, and it seems to be doing good. There's job
Says who?
growth. What?
Says who?
It's the stock
CNN.
market's going up. That's why they say it's good, because the stock market's going up. But you even look at, the employment numbers are going up a little bit, but look at what kind of jobs those are. They're all low-paying jobs. So, it's like they fuck with the metrics to make the message what they want it to be, right?
Well, it's just, yeah, I am not an Obama fan, not an Obama defender. It's hard. I just can't swallow the fact that he's okay, blowing up wedding parties and stuff with drones. And also, it's hard for me to swallow the fact that he doesn't have the balls to come out, and maybe he can't, but I wish he'd like stick up for Snowden and be like, this is a whistleblower. He did a good thing. Let's pardon this motherfucker.
Well, how about his campaign website? They
Yeah.
had to change the literature on his
Exactly.
campaign website because they kept it up for the longest time. But it was there was a very specific chapter or part about whistleblowers.
Yeah.
About
Marijuana is
defending
becoming legal
whistleblowers.
under his presidency. Marijuana seems to be becoming
Yeah,
legal.
but is that something that you just can't stop? I mean, at one point in time, when is this country going to have an Arab Spring moment if they keep fucking with us and taking away personal liberties? There's going to come a moment where
Right.
people are not going to want to deal with it anymore.
Right.
And one of the things that's pretty easy to give up on is marijuana. Because by golly, look at what's going on in Colorado. They're profiting from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's become a part of the economy that is always there, but now it's officially a part where they're paying taxes. They're
Right.
making millions of dollars in taxes in Colorado for marijuana
Right.
since February. I mean, it's
there'll never be an
craziness.
Arab Spring here because the powers that be here are too smart. What they do is every time the pressure builds up too much, they let out a little pressure by allowing to be elected a cool-seeming black dude, for example, or by allowing the legalization of marijuana, for example. That lets a little pressure off. Things, I think, at the end of the Bush presidency and with the economic collapse, and the people were angry enough, that there was something was going to happen. So they just, like any good negotiator, give something you can afford to lose to keep the other person from pulling out of the deal. I think that's what happens in this country. I think the mistake that happens in Arab countries or other countries where their hands are tied by some, empire system, they can't play those games or they're not predisposed to do that. They don't want to give up any power. So I think in this country, that's the problem. We're being numbed by technology. We think we tweet something, we've done a revolutionary act. And every time things really get serious, they'll give a little. Same thing in the Depression, right? Things were really serious. First, they attacked anyone who had anything to do with communism in the 1920s, the Red Scare.
Right.
Then the Depression comes along. They allow Roosevelt to get in there. He is able to pass some laws, Social Security, taking care of old people, dealing with some of the sources of the greatest resentment and anger, neutralize those a little bit so we can keep playing the game. Don't fundamentally restructure anything.
We'd have to have massive support of the people that got you into power to fundamentally restructure things. There's no motivation for them to do that.
Right. They like
That's
it the way it
problem,
is.
Which
Yeah.
is the problem that we were talking about earlier with
Right.
corporations. They don't act in the interest of human beings, yet they're conducted and they're made out of human beings. I mean, they're constructed from human beings, and they don't like human beings.
Yeah, but it's sort of like, and I hate doing
So
this because it's a
weird.
beautiful. It celebrates It's kind of like music, right? I mean, is music made from guitars and violins and pianos, or is music something else? I kind of feel like corporations are like that. They're like some sort of spirit or something that
Wow.
imbues the participants.
Spooky.
Right.
You
So
know what I
like,
mean?
oh, that's so weird. So like all the people in a corporation are all possessed by this spirit, and they don't even know they're possessed by it, even though their entire lives are centered around it.
Right.
And they're all, so the spirit is manifesting through the corporation, and you're basically seeing like one of the old school deities that people used to worship way back in the day manifesting in a modern way through this organized coven of people who all think they're doing the right thing or their own little thing or whatever, and they don't realize that together they form a demon.
Exactly.
Well, it seems to me
Cool.
that also that everything fucking changes. I mean, if you look at the world, you look at the universe, you look at the birth of stars, stellar nurseries, you look at hypernovas, the death of stars, you look at all these different things. Like the whole universe is in a constant state of change.
Yeah.
And our idea is that somehow or another we're going to reach some point of peace where everything's going to calm down and we can enjoy our society and our golden years. And it's never going to happen. It's going to be in a constant state of yin and yang, a push and pull to the very end, to whatever. I mean, the existence that we're currently participating in seems to have those laws pretty firm. The tide goes in, the tide goes out, the fucking planets spin around the
Yeah.
stars explode eventually, the planets dry up, stardust becomes more people figure out the atom, they split that bitch, they fucking start making nuclear weapons, they shoot to the moon, it just keeps going on and on and on, like an endless cycle of the same thing happening over and over and over again, constantly changing, constantly moving forward.
Complexifying. complexifying.
Pulling in and pulling out.
It's complexifying.
Yeah.
That's this thing I just read. Have you heard about this? How complexity doesn't seem to fit into the idea of a universe cooling down?
Because of entropy, which
Yeah.
is the opposite.
Yeah, it kind of flies in the face of everything that things are becoming more and more complex because if the energy's running out, things should not complexify. They should simplify. Is that correct?
Well, that's entropy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That it's running down to nothing.
So it doesn't make
should be
sense that things are complexifying, and there's some kind of who knows what that means, but it might indicate that we're like the flow of time itself, we're just perceiving it the wrong way. We're like actually what we think is the past going into the future is actually the future pouring into the past, and the thing that's pouring into the past is some kind of super complex harmonized thing. So maybe it is possible, Joe. Maybe it is possible the great giant orgy, the entire planet just filled with humans somehow synced up together. Not the Borg, not soulless, emotionless things, but somehow we all connect, and all of a sudden the universe is just spitting out UFOs, or the planet is, Suddenly we're like spreading through all of space after we've like first harmonized.
We're change machines. That's what we are. We're a part of this whole gigantic organism that's known as the Earth, and it's a part of a gigantic organism known as a solar system, which is a part of a gigantic organism known as the universe. I mean, it's just one piece of the thing, and we're change machines. As Marshall McLuhan said, and McLuhan said that human beings are the sex organs of the machine world. And that's essentially what we're doing. I mean, our whole struggle and this desire for achieving things has a lot to do with that. It has a lot to do with us being a part of this weird process.
Which is why that guy said it was selfish of you not to have kids. Because he's spouting the ideology of the machine world, of which we're the sexual organs.
He's also a dickwad who wants to get some brownie points by saying someone else is wrong.
Breed.
Right.
Why won't you breed?
Speaking of breeding and people getting involved in your business, why is it that right-wingers are so uptight about abortion? Because most abortions are poor people, and you would think their whole thing is, demonizing poor people, so you would think that fewer non-white poor people would be a good thing from a right-wing perspective. And yet they're participating in creating more of them by making abortion a problem in this country. It's a strange thing I've never understood.
It's a Jesus thing. They don't want you killing babies. And, they look at that idea of choice being killing babies, and babies are the greatest things you could ever do. How could anybody want to kill babies? The problem
then
with
why are they against birth control?
Well, only the super religious ones are against birth control. You'd have to get to like Catholics. It's very rare that you hear politicians talking about not being pro-birth control.
Whoa! Not in most of the southern states where they only teach abstinence.
Well,
Abstinence only sex ed in schools.
I think it's pretty rare for someone to actually stand on a platform of being anti-birth control in 2014, whether it's condoms or anything.
I think it's much more prevalent than you think.
Maybe
I think
wrong.
It's standard Fox News rhetoric.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's so
Sex
sad.
without
if that's
consequences.
Really true, that's ridiculous.
Sex
all
without
those
consequences.
Fox
That's what they
perverts
say.
are banging each other.
So it's anti-pleasure because they don't want people having sex without consequences.
Did you say Fox
Silly.
News perverts are banging each other?
Guarantee it.
God, Jesus, man.
Geraldo
who
Rivera
gets to
slinging
bang
dick all
Megan?
around
What's
that
her
office.
name?
You do.
I
Just
wish.
gotta get friends.
I wish.
You
She's
just got to get close to the hive.
okay. What about hate fucking? Like, have you ever? Are you a hate fucker, Duncan?
No.
No.
I've never understood that. The thing like you're fucking someone because you're mad at them?
I guess. Yeah.
That just seems
It's
horrible.
not. I mean, the only time I would entertain the idea would be the Megan, whatever her name is, and Sarah Palin.
You would hate fuck Sarah Palin?
I think I would.
I wouldn't. I'd try to hate fuck her, but I bet I'd fall in love with her halfway through.
You think so?
Sure, why not?
What do you think would really appeal to you the most about her?
Because I bet she's fucking cool.
Oh, come on. She's so far from cool.
This is the terror of it all, man. It's like don't confuse the persona with the person. Who knows what's underneath there? I guarantee she's super charismatic, and you did just end up being like, God, this is amazing. Yeah, sure, fist me. I don't care. I want to see what it's like, Sarah.
Wow. Fist me. Do you think she fists people?
Megan. Well, that's
I don't
not
know.
the Megan I was thinking of, but yeah.
Does-
Megan McCain's kind of cool, actually. I was thinking of Megan Kelly, I think, the blonde
I know who you're
newscaster.
thinking of. You're thinking of
She's very hot.
She's very hot and really mean.
mean, uptight, like very American kind of.
Yep.
And there's some of those the women who do the financial shit. You know, they're just so smoking hot, and then they open their. Is that Megyn Kelly? My
see,
God.
look at that.
She's hot
That
as
doesn't
fuck.
even look like.
You
what
know
I'm
she's
thinking of,
standing
but-
on someone's face right now.
That's her I want to fuck you pose. A guy's not allowed to do that pose, by the way, if you're a newscaster. You can't sit there with your fucking legs spread open, your gym shorts, the blue ones with the white pinstriping.
Do you guys see that thing where the newscaster says it's in New York and the guy's like, "Keep fucking that chicken." Have you seen that?
No.
Oh, pull that up. That is the funniest thing ever. It's
fucking that
live,
chicken.
like 6 p.m. news.
Why does he say keep fucking that chicken?
It's like a banter between the guy, like the weatherman and the sports guy.
Yeah?
Oh, it's less than a minute. I mean, if you pull it up,
So
I don't want
does
to.
he-
I don't want to talk about it
Did
too
he
much.
just make a mistake?
I have no idea. That's why I'm asking. I thought you guys might
Keep
have a
fucking
theory.
that chicken.
He says
hilarious.
that, and you'll see the woman's face when he says it. The newscaster woman just loses her shit.
That's really funny.
I'm sure if you just Google "keep fucking the chicken," it's there.
That's so funny when like people on the news act normal for a second and it horrifies everyone. It's really hilarious to see their
Oh, here it
reaction.
is.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick.
I guess that's me.
Keep fucking that chicken.
Okay, I'll do
All
that.
right, before we continue, the lost symbol is found in lots of...
You sure that's real?
I don't think it's real.
I think it's real. It's Ernie.
Yeah, she look at her face.
You think that's real?
I think it's real.
I'm not.
They apologized.
They apologized
They did?
for it?
For it, yeah.
Well, he just got a little crazy.
Who knows, man? These weirdo Illuminati people, they probably do fuck chickens.
Yeah, maybe it's like a thing. He just didn't want to tell anybody. It slipped out. It's
Yeah,
just one of those things he's
probably
holding it
fucks a
back too
rotisserie
long.
chicken. I bet he buys rotisserie chickens and fucks them. It would probably work.
Ernie Anastas, right. Keep fucking that chicken.
What does that mean? Did he explain why? Who cares about the apology? We want to know what
That-
is it?
yeah.
What's it referencing?
Guy's probably on drugs, man.
I think they had a conversation before they were on air where the one guy was talking about fucking chickens and joking about it,
wait.
and the other guy just referred to it.
No.
without
Yeah.
Isn't a chicken a name for like a twink? Isn't it a gay term, like a chicken?
Now you're going deep.
No, Google search it. I think
No.
it's. Let's look it up. I think it is. Yeah.
Why would you look it up?
You can fuck chickens
Because
because
I
they have
remember-
a cloaca where the egg comes out and the sex organs are all in the same hole. Cocks do not have cocks. That's a weird thing.
They don't?
They don't. Yeah,
What do they have?
They have the cloaca, which is this hole where they do what's called a cloacal kiss, where the male and the female will line up their cloacal holes, and a little thing from the sperm shoot out of the male into the female.
Wow.
Hold on, guys. I've been
Yeah.
vindicated. Can you pull that up, please?
Twink.
It says the term chicken are also preferred down here where I highlighted it.
They call them chickens.
Fox,
Yeah.
plum, chick, or chicken are preferred.
Wow. Look at that poor bastard. Imagine if you were on Wikipedia and then you look under twink and they got a picture of you. Like, boy,
funny.
you are a fucking twink, man. I mean,
Who is that
that's
guy?
like an old statement.
That's
yeah,
funny.
Look, what you
Who
want to
is
know the
the
word
guy?
twink? Look up a picture of yourself in the dictionary.
Wait,
It's a name there. Brent
Brent?
Corrigan.
was the best amateur twink performer.
Oh my God. Well, so he's proud. He's a proud twink.
Wow.
You got to be careful, man. We can only have twink around ectomorphic build. You can only have twink around for another couple of years before someone gets unbelievably offended by it and calls you a piece of shit. LBDQ.
Oh,
Can't
man.
say twink.
Okay, I've been living in Portland for like 5 days at
Yes.
this point, and I've already offended
Overdosed.
some lesbians.
Yeah, you're going to overdose on political correctness in that silly
It's
town.
so intense up there. I was sitting in a camper the other night, and this woman says, I don't remember what it was, and this woman says, well, that's living in the white man's world. And I said, I'm not white, I'm Irish. And that didn't. She
You're
didn't
not
get
white,
it.
you're Irish?
I'm Irish. It's different.
Oh.
The
And
Irish.
She got offended?
You know, in the
She got offended
in
at
the
that?
no, but she was confused by it. The late 19th, early 20th century in the United States and of course in England, the Irish were considered beneath Africans on the scale of evolved human beings.
That's interesting because
Yeah.
they came last to this country. Is that what it was?
No, just because they were like rougher, harder to deal with, farted in public a lot, things, the things we all know and love about the Irish. But
Is that a thing?
farting
Farting
in
in
public?
public?
No, I just made that up.
No, it's sure. It's certainly a thing. Happens everywhere.
No.
You don't think it happens everywhere?
Farting in public or just openly?
I've never heard
farting
it
in public?
ascribed to Irish people. Like when I think
Drunks.
of it.
No, I'm
People who
joking.
drink.
George
Drinking.
Carlin, beer,
If you're
creates
drinking
farts.
beer, you're cutting farts.
And George Carlin had that whole thing where he's like, how come he talked about the Irish oppression and jobs for Irish and all that, but he was like, and what the hell is with the Fighting Irish? Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish. I mean, how is that not offensive, right? Like if you had the lazy Mexicans take the field, right, or the chiseling Jews, and he does this whole thing. And he's
chiseling Jews.
Chiseling
That's a
Jews.
great term, the chiseling Jews.
He's great.
Yeah, he was
He's
awesome.
the best. Yeah.
That's funny. All right, gentlemen, I think we're at 3 hours.
Are we at 3 hours?
Yes.
Yeah. These things fucking fly
Fly
by.
by.
They fly
Yeah.
by. They've been amongst the most popular podcasts that I do, and I know you guys are saying the same thing.
Well,
it's pretty
the
cool.
one we did together last time, I guess mine was the third, right? Has twice as many downloads as any other that have been up forever. And the second is you and me.
Wow,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the same thing with us. I mean, these podcasts that we have are amongst the highest downloaded ones that we have. The
one-
synergistic effect.
The
you know?
one we did for sure is the most downloads I ever got.
They're really
great.
fun. They're
That's
they're
great.
fun. They're bizarre. It's a very bizarre combination.
I don't know if you guys saw, I created a page that archives them.
Okay, cool.
I'm happy to transfer it wherever we decide to do it. But for the moment, it's on chrisryanphd.com, and you'll see Tripodcast
Beautiful.
tab. And that's where the first 3 are archived.
Yeah.
It's just a link that leads back to your site and your site.
Cool.
And we were talking before the podcast started about trying to figure out a name, but we're not even close. Old Men in the Snow, though, is pretty badass because of your description of what it is.
Right. But would people, is
is
it
good.
funny without knowing the story?
No, you have
Yeah.
to tell the story, though. Just
Yeah.
tell people the story because I don't think you did while the podcast was going on. It was before the podcast
Oh, we were
started.
talking about techniques that adolescent boys develop, the good ones anyway, for not coming, and like some people think of baseball stats or whatever, just something like non-sexual to get your head away from what you're doing, which in itself is kind of a weird thing to be. You're like having the best
Right.
experience of your life,
Yeah.
and you're trying not to notice.
Because
Yeah.
nature wants you to come instantly and just shoot a load into a chick and make a kid, and you want to have a
Yes.
good time. It's
Exactly.
a strategy.
Yeah.
It's very zen.
Well, it goes back to sex at dawn. It's, a sperm competition.
Yes.
Nature's designed you to shoot your load, get out of the way so
Hurry,
the next
hurry,
guy
hurry.
can.
Exactly.
And that's why, by the way, we're turned on by seeing gangbangs and dudes fucking.
Maybe you are.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway, so my technique was to think about old people trudging through the snow, like World War II, Crimean refugees trudging through that Russian winter,
there's one.
freezing.
Look at that.
Yeah, like that. A babushka.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That makes me not want to
Yeah,
come.
think of what that guy's feet
Sorry,
smell
guys.
like.
I can't come now.
Yeah, that guy's asshole. Imagine if that
Is that a
guy's
guy?
asshole. Would you live the rest of your life if that guy's asshole was permanently an inch from your face?
Oh, it is a guy.
Yeah, what would you do for the rest of your life? Well, you can live. You can do everything you want. You can go biking. You can fucking you can go to the movies. That guy's
biking.
asshole
It would block your
will
view,
always
man.
be like no, right here to the right. You can move it around, but it always has to stay sort of like the moon is in your orbit. That guy's asshole, his raw
His
asshole,
asshole
will always
orbits
be,
your head.
You know
Right
what?
near your
After a
face.
week or two, you wouldn't even notice
You
it
say
anymore.
that, I would kill myself.
I would kill myself.
I'd push that guy
Oh,
with
no.
me off
I
a
would
fucking
just,
cliff,
I'd enjoy my life.
farting in your face. all
Everything's
day.
perfect.
No
Tibetan yak
asshole ever
farts.
lands in the wrong place. That's what the Buddhists say.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, okay. All right. Both of you guys. And thus, ladies and gentlemen, that very conversation highlights the differences between us. Okay, follow everybody on Twitter. Duncan Trussell, DUNCANTRUSSELL. And our friend Chris Ryan Ph.D. on Twitter. Chris's podcast is Tangentially Speaking, and it's chrisryanphd.com. You can get everything on there. And DuncanTrussell.com. Duncan Trussell Family Hour is his podcast.
Yes.
Both are awesome. And if you're tired of hearing me, listen to some of that. All right? Get in there.
Bye.
We're also brought to you by Ting. Go to rogan.ting.com. Enjoy awesome cell phone service with none of the bullshit. And get 25% off. Or, no, what do you get? $25. $25 off of your first Ting device when you sign up. That's rogan.ting.com. $25 off your first device. We are also brought to you by Stamps.com. Go to Stamps.com, click on the old schooly microphone, and enter in the code word JRE for a $110 bonus offer, which includes free postage. $55 worth of free postage and a free digital scale. and a lot of good shit. All right, and we're also brought to you by Onnit. That's ONNIT. Use the code word Rogan and save 10% off any and all supplements. Next week, got a lot of cool guests coming up, ladies and gentlemen. I got Dr. Carl Hart's going to be on the podcast. Matt the Terra Serra, former UFC welterweight champion of the world. Amber Lyon. We got a lot of shit happening. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all the love. Have a good time. We'll see you in Dallas in a couple days, you fucking savages.
Bye.
Woo!